Hey guys. This is part 9 of What If Naruto was the older brother of the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 46. Snakes in the Grass. Kukuku, so this is the Team 7 I've heard so much about. The kunoichi chuckled as she slowly walked up to the 3 genin who were frozen in fear. Frozen stiff at a tiny bit of killing intent? TSK. What a shame. It seems you were simply riding on the laurels of your sensei. Sasuke was furious at the kunoichi's taunts. What did she know about their relationship with Naruto anyway? Still, his anger was overshadowed by the fear of death that seized him and his teammates, and he stayed rooted to where he stood, silent. I thought you'd be more interesting, you know. The last Uchiha Genin and the Hyuga heiress training under the son of the Yondaime, the so-called strongest Hokage since the Shodai, she said mockingly. Looks like the rumors were just rumors, though. Oh well. The smile on her face instantly morphed into one of apathy. I'm bored now. Guess I'll kill you now. The kunoichi went through a few hand seals and slammed her palm on the ground. With a puff of smoke, 3 white snakes emerged, and threw themselves at the throats of each of the genin of Team 7. Narumi, Hinata, and Sasuke's eyes bulged in fear as they begged their bodies to respond. They needed to move now or else they'd be dead in a few seconds. But alas, no matter how much they ordered their bodies to move, they could only watch as the snakes got closer and closer to them, unable to move like in a bad dream. And no, it can't end like this. I still have to prove myself. I can't die without even having become Jonin. I still need to revive my clan. Sasuke struggled to move, wanting to rise up to the occasion and save his friends so badly, but his body betrayed him. The snakes seemed to slow down as they got closer and closer, and his vision sharpened even further, as he unknowingly unlocked the 3rd tomo of his Sharingan. However, without the control of his body, all it did was show him exactly where those snakes would be striking in the next second. All seemed lost for the 3 genin, and they were about to give up. It seemed like their hopes and dreams would die here. They were caught off guard again, when the snakes were suddenly sliced into pieces and vanished in a puff of smoke just a few feet away from their face. Come on, guys! What are you doing? Get yourselves together! One of Narumi's clones from their sentry perimeter shouted out as the other clones formed a defensive wall in front of Team 7 and slapped the frozen genin awake. Nichan would be ashamed of us if we gave up like this. We still have more to show. What are you doing? With the slap and words from the clones, they were able to get their heads back on, and the resolve of the 3 genin were rekindled. You're right. We're not done yet. Come on, guys. Let's show this creepy snake woman what Team 7 can do. Narumi shouted out to her teammates after being slapped into her senses by her own clone. Sasuke gritted his teeth and clenched his fists, furious at his own weakness, and was out for blood now. He'd show this Kusa genin that Naruto's team was not to be looked down on. Narumi! Buy us some time. I think I might have an idea to take down this woman. Narumi nodded and ordered her clones to swarm the Kusa kunoichi. The Kusa kunoichi chuckled at the dozen or so clones that charged her with their swords out. Oh, so it's a battle of blades you want, eh? Kukuku. I can oblige you if you so wish. The kunoichi smirked as she drew a kunai. The Narumi clones knew their advantage lied in their numbers. As such, they made no effort of engaging one at a time, but instead swarmed her from all directions, doing their best to deny the slippery kunoichi even an inch to maneuver. Razor-sharp blades fell upon the Kusa kunoichi from all angles, but the kunoichi didn't seem fazed in the least bit, as she effortlessly parried the nearest blade into the one next to it, causing them to glance away from her. She then stepped into the newly created space and stabbed one of the clones in the throat, while using the other hand to grab another clone's wrist to seize control of the blade it was holding and threw the clone into 3 oncoming blades, causing it to poof out of existence while she got out of the encirclement. Several clones fanned out in an attempt to encircle the kunoichi again, but the kunoichi caught them off guard when she charged back into the center and impaled 2 clones with her kunai in the blink of an eye. Meanwhile, while the clones were keeping the kunoichi occupied, Sasuke relayed his plan to his teammates. He had to hurry, as the clones were effortlessly torn apart by the mysterious kunoichi, and the last one soon puffed out of existence in less than a minute since they engaged her. However, they had still bought him just enough time to get his teammates the info. Alright guys, we're going with Formation H. Narumi! Narumi nodded as she formed a cross-shaped seal with her hand, creating 10 more shadow clones. 6 of them charged at the kunoichi head-on. This again? This is getting quite tedious. Surely you have more to show than these pitiful clones and your shoddy kenjutsu? The kunoichi easily dispatched the 6 oncoming clones with a few quick flicks of her arm. They still managed to fulfill their purpose, however, as they were merely a distraction though, and 2 Narumis made their way to each side of the kunoichi. Suetun, water wall jutsu! A Narumi clone on each side cried out, before each spat out a massive wave of water that formed a wall on either side of the kunoichi. This much water without a water source. Kakuku, now this is starting to get interesting. Doton, Doriahiki! Earth release, mud wall. The kunoichi called out before she spat out a trail of mud on either side of her, and 2 massive walls of earth rose out of the ground to protect the kunoichi. We're not done yet! Right-on lightning pathway jutsu! The other 2 clones channeled their lightning chakra into the walls of water, causing it to spark wildly as it fell upon the earth walls. Dual elemental affinities? This wasn't in the report. I suppose if you want something done properly, you have to do it yourself. Kakuku. I love being out in the field. The electrified walls of water easily dismantled the walls and began to collapse in onto the kunoichi. Futon, Fujinhiki. Wind release, swift wind wall. Starting from the kunoichi as an epicenter, wind began to rotate around her in the shape of a ball, and it quickly expanded and blew the electrified water and chunks of the mud wall away from her. Sasuke hadn't expected the Kusa kunoichi to use wind release but smiled when she did. Perfect. He couldn't have asked for anything better. Katon, Gakaki no Jutsu! Fire release, grand fireball technique. A massive ball of fire struck the rotating shield of wind, setting it ablaze. The kunoichi screamed in pain as the roaring inferno combined with the swirling wind to becoming a consuming oven or broiler that seemed to burn her from all directions. The wall of water that had been blown back began to pool back towards the kunoichi, extinguishing the flames, but was also evaporated away by the intense heat, forming a dense mist over the area. We still have to give the finishing blow. Don't let your guard down. She's more dangerous than you think, Sasuke warned his teammates. Now! Hinata! He shouted out, starting the last leg of their formation. Hinata nodded, activating her Dijutsu. She stepped into the mist, where she could see the hunched-over opponent rising back to her feet. She steeled herself to fight and readied her hands. The kunoichi had barely gotten to her feet when Hinata began to throw a flurry of juken strikes all over the kunoichi's body. The kunoichi was unable to defend herself from Hinata's attack, and Hinata could see the damage each of her blows inflicted onto the kunoichi's chakra system. This is the real one. I got her this time, Hinata thought to herself as she continued her onslaught, forcing herself to kill her compassion to make sure this terrifying foe stayed down forever. She was too much of a threat to show mercy. Chunks of already burnt flesh exploded away from some of Hinata's devastating lightning chakra lace strikes, a new technique she had been working on developing with Naruto to create a new style of not-so-gentle fist. The woman fell down like a ragdoll after the combined attacks of Team 7 devastated her body. Silence soon took over the mist, with only Hinata's panting filling in the air. The silence immediately following intense activity made the other 2 genin curious as to what was going on in the mist. Hinata-chan? Are you okay? Is it over? Narumi called out. Hinata sobbed a little as she looked over the mangled body of the kunoichi. She hadn't fully tested out the jutsu yet, so she was utterly horrified when she found out how terrible the attack was. She felt like a monster. Sob. I am here. It's over. Narumi began to weave some hand seals right away. Futon Tappa! Wind release breakthrough. The gust of wind blew the dense mist away, revealing Hinata crying over the carnage she created. Narumi dashed over to hug Hinata, while Sasuke went over to check if the terrifying kunoichi was finally down. While Narumi comforted Hinata, telling her she did what needed to be done, Sasuke approached the corpse with the utmost caution, with his Sharingan activated just in case. He wasn't about to take any chances after what he saw what the kunoichi was capable of. He drew a kunai and threw it at the kunoichi, to make sure she was dead. The kunai embedded itself into the kunoichi's skull, and she remained unmoving. Sasuke was now sure she was dead and deactivated his Sharingan. He was about to turn around to address his teammates, When the kunoichi's mouth opened unnaturally wide, much like a snake, Sasuke threw himself at his teammates, barely tackling them to the ground in time as a new, undamaged kunoichi emerged out of the dead one and flew over Hinata and Narumi. But she was dead. How is she alive again? Narumi stammered out in fear as she looked on at the revived kunoichi who stood before her, a question her teammates were also wondering. Kukuku, what a combination! A brilliant plan, really. Dual elemental affinities? Or was that 3? Unbelievable. I wouldn't expect that from most Chunin, let alone from a genin. And what was that? An electrified Jukin? That was new. Some much-needed innovation for that fossil of a clan. Now I'm really getting excited. Kukuku, perhaps you will amuse me after all. The kunoichi hissed out with a wide grin, as she hungrily eyed the genin with a mad excitement visible in her wide-open eyes. Team 7 gulped as they huddled together and put up their guards. They had just thrown some of their best jutsu at the woman, and she somehow shed her body to re-emerge unharmed, like some unholy demon snake. They were absolutely terrified. Kukuki, you 3 remind me of my old teammates. The kunoichi chuckled as she reminisced of times past. Well, anyhow, you've given me a great demonstration of what you are capable of. I suppose it would only be fair if I rewarded you by showing you a small taste of what I'm capable of. Her eyes seemed to glow yellow as she licked her lips with her long tongue. Well, children, get ready. Here I come. With Karen and Narumi's clones. Gosh, where is he? I can't find him anywhere. One of the clones whined. Ugh. Come on, Nai-chan. What do you even do on your free time anyway? The other one complained in agreement. Karen sat down on some nearby stairs that led up an alley, resting her tired legs from walking around in the forest all day, and now again for several hours in the evening searching for Narumi's brother. She was sore, tired, and now hungry again. I mean, is it important that we find him right now? Maybe we can wait for him at your house, Karen asked as she massaged her calves. We're clones, you know. It's not like we last forever. What if you were out here on the streets by yourself and then we poofed away? A clone replied to Karen. Oh. Well, I didn't know that. We don't really have solid, talking clones like you guys in Kusa, you know. How long do you last anyway? The clones looked at each other, each hoping the other one had the answer. Neither of them did. We're not sure. But we were just trying to be safe, you know? What's the saying again? Better safe than sorry? Karen considered what they said and found herself agreeing. She didn't like the idea of walking down the streets of a foreign village by herself with nowhere to go. I guess you're right, but what's the plan now? Are we just gonna keep looking randomly? Karen asked. One Narumi clone shrugged while the other began to think. She then turned around and cupped her hands around her mouth like a megaphone. Naruto and Ai-chan! She yelled out at the top of her lungs, ignoring the annoyed looks of everyone else on the streets. Naruto and Ai-chan! The other Narumi clone and Karen flinched away from the sudden loud noise and covered their ears with their hands. Narumi evidently had a really loud voice. Geez! Give us a warning before you yell like that! The other Narumi clone complained to the shouting Narumi clone. I almost got dispelled from the shock. The shouting clone ignored the other clone. Naruto and Ai-chan! Geez, quit yelling in the middle of the street! A voice replied back. The 3 redheads turned their heads to see who it was. Naruto and Ai-chan! Finally! Where had you been this whole time? The clone asked as she ran towards Naruto. The question is, what the heck are you doing here? Why aren't you in training ground 44? Did you drop out? Naruto asked as he received Narumi into his arms. He couldn't help but be worried that his team had been disqualified from the exams. Of course not. We're just clones. Duh. Did you really think we'd get disqualified? Narumi sent us to guide her to you. The other clone replied as she walked towards Naruto with a shy Karen behind her. Naruto looked behind Narumi and saw an unfamiliar redhead behind her. Who in the world is she? He wondered as he fixated on her red hair. Could she be? This is Karen! But guess what, an Ai-chan? Narumi's clones asked with excitement evident in her tone. What? Naruto asked. What could possibly so important that Narumi created clones to escort some random Kusa shinobi to him? Unless... Karen is an Uzumaki! She's my sister! Narumi exclaimed with a huge smile on her face. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise as his hunch was proven correct. You're an Uzumaki? Naruto asked Karen to confirm. Karen nodded shyly, hidden behind the shoulder of a clone. She didn't know why she felt so nervous, but she couldn't help but feel shy. She also couldn't help but be captivated by the blonde's blue eyes which looked at her in curiosity. Were all the guys in Konoha hot? Hot damn! If this was going to be her clan head, she'd definitely love to stay in Konoha. She had always imagined clan heads as being some stuffy, crabby, crusty old man who would be strict and super formal. A hot young man though? She definitely needed to find a way to stay. Still, as distracted as she was by his attractiveness, part of her couldn't help but feel like she had seen his face before. Naruto smiled as he offered her his hand for a handshake. She blushed slightly at his smile as she shyly shook his hand. Hi! I'm Uzumaki Naruto! I guess I'm sort of the clan head of the Uzumaki. But don't get caught up with that. Just think of me as your cousin, Naruto said, pleased at having met another member of his mother's presumed to be lost clan. He then turned to Narumi. And yes, you heard me right. You two are cousins, not sisters. I explained how this worked before, remember? Narumi rolled her eyes and scoffed. Whatever. There's only like 3 of us anyway. I'm gonna call her my sister. Karen observed the 2 siblings as they bantered about how the concept of siblings worked. She could definitely see that they had some similar features, like their nose or the shape of their mouth. But she couldn't believe that the blonde in front of her was actually an Uzumaki. Her mother had red hair, she had red hair, and Narumi had red hair, but Naruto? He had bright blonde hair, not even remotely similar to red. How did that even work genetically? You know, maybe it's just me not being familiar with the whole Uzumaki clan thing, but you don't really look like me and Narumi. You look more like... Karen let her eyes wander as she tried to remember where she had seen his likeness before her eyes fell on the Hokage monument. Her eyes widened in shock as she came to a strange conclusion. No, he couldn't be, could he? Naruto saw where Karen's eyes was fixed on and figured out what she was thinking. Why are you by any chance related to the Yanyandane? The Yellow Flash? Karen asked in shock. Naruto chuckled. Yup. That's my old man. Karen's jaw dropped. With Team 7, Sasuke leaned against a tree, huffing to catch his breath after a failed attack, as he gripped the shuriken wound on his arm tightly. It was clear they couldn't just go in blindly. They needed a plan. He needed to come up with something quick, or their team would die this evening. His mind couldn't help but go back to the mission in Takigakure. That was the last time he had been in a fight for his life. He wondered which fight was tougher. This fight was definitely tougher and by a significant margin too. Which was strange. How could a single genin possibly be stronger than 3 jonin? That made no sense. Sure, he had his ass kicked by the jonin from aim in his fight in Taki, but at least that made sense. He was fighting one-on-one with a jonin. However, when his team came together, they were still able to take down at least 1 jonin. Sure, they could have been weak jonin, but that still implied that Team 7 should at least be able to take down a chunin when fighting together, or maybe even individually. So how could it be that a single genin was effortlessly toying with them like this? Once the creepy Kunoichi shed her injured body and came at them again, he realized that their previous attacks had only landed because she had allowed them to land. She had allowed their strongest attacks to land, just to see what they were capable of doing. She had never been concerned in the slightest that they could possibly hurt her. And now that she was done gauging their skills, they weren't able to land a single hit on her. This isn't adding up. I know there could be stronger genin out there, but this? This goes way beyond the level of any genin, or even chunin for that matter. Just who is this person really? While Sasuke tried to catch his breath after his failed attack, Narumi led a tired and injured Hinata in her best attempt to cut into the kunoichi, stubbornly trying despite failing repeatedly. Just stand still for a second, will ya? Narumi shouted out as she missed another slash. Hinata limped behind, her leg throbbing in pain after a deceptively powerful low kick from the kunoichi had effectively paralyzed her thigh temporarily. She tried her best to support Narumi's offensive onslaught by throwing a hail of electrified Senbon at the Kusa kunoichi. Futon de Tapa! Wind release, great breakthrough. The kunoichi shouted out as she breathed out an immensely powerful gust of wind, blowing away the numerous Senbons sent her way, as well as Narumi and Hinata. Hinata was sent flying into a tree with a sickening thud and slumped over. Narumi, who had been even closer to her, was sent flying through multiple branches, and far from the scene. Cuckoo! I haven't had this much fun in a while. But it's starting to get late. Time to wrap things up here and move on. The kunoichi chuckled to herself as she walked towards Hinata, who was beginning to stir but still in a daze. Sasuke immediately threw himself in front of Hinata and drew a massive collapsible Fuma Shuriken. You're not laying a finger on her! Sasuke growled out to the kunoichi. And who's gonna stop me? You! Kukuku, don't worry about being left out. I've got plans for you too, little Uchiha boy. Wait your turn. Sasuke opened up the folded Fuma Shuriken and charged towards the kunoichi, Sharingan blazing to observe any movement from her and react accordingly. The kunoichi surprised Sasuke when she merely grinned at him before freezing him in his tracks. Kanashibari no Jutsu. Paralysis technique. Sasuke tumbled on the floor as his momentum carried him forward, but his body was suddenly no longer his to control. If you're so impatient, why don't I just start with you? The kunoichi hissed out. Sasuke was caught off guard when her neck suddenly elongated as her head stretched towards Sasuke like a snake. Sasuke could only watch the grotesque sight in fear as the kunoichi sunk her now visible fangs into the side of his neck. Aghai! Sasuke's scream of pain rang out through the forest as he felt like liquid fire was running through his veins, starting from the area of the bite. Even when the kunoichi released him from her jutsu, all he could do was clutch at his neck and scream in pain, before the darkness took him. Hinata saw the whole scene and was terrified. She didn't know what had just happened, but she wasn't keen to let it happen to her. She tried to get up, but her legs were about as stable as a newly born deer. She wobbled back onto her feet, leaning on the tree behind her for support. Now be a good girl and stay still, won't you, dear? The kunoichi asked with a sinister grin on her face. Hinata was sweating bullets as her face lost all color. She felt like she was a child again, the days following her kidnapping when her father became even stricter with her. It felt like all of the progress she had made with Naruto and Team 7 had melted away, and she was helpless once again. Please, don't hurt me! She pleaded futilely. Leave my friend alone! Narumi screamed as she emerged from the forest, battered and bruised, but also furious. She flew at the kunoichi, weaving through several hand seals for a jutsu, hoping to at least separate her from Hinata. Suetun Mizurappa! Water release, water trumpet technique. The kunoichi didn't even bother dodging, instead clapping her hands together. Futon Ripusho! Wind release, gale palm. The powerful gale of wind instantly overpowered and dispersed the water jutsu and sent the water back at Narumi. Ah! Narumi screamed as she was once again sent tumbling back, this time also being battered by the water from her own jutsu. The kunoichi wasted no time, turning around and sinking her fangs into a shocked Hinata's neck, causing her to scream in severe pain. Narumi watched in horror as Hinata clutched onto her neck, before she collapsed onto the floor, twitching in pain before that too subsided. Why you killed them? You killed my friends! Narumi screamed in fury and anguish. Only if they're weak. However, I may send you to the other side first to greet them if you wish. The kunoichi replied. However, Narumi was unable to hear her, as she was having trouble keeping her mind focused. No, stay calm, Narumi. Stay calm. Rip her apart. Kill her. Get vengeance. The Kyuubi screamed inside her mind, taking advantage of her weak mind state. No. Don't lose control, Narumi. No, don't. However, she was unable to do so after she believed she saw her friends die, and she began to give in to her fury. You killed my friends. You killed Sasuke and Hinata, she screamed out in a voice that wasn't completely her own. Red chakra began to bubble through her skin, as she began to lose control of her rage. So, you are indeed the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. The kunoichi mused to herself. Well, unfortunately for you, as fun as it sounds to tangle with a Jinchuriki, I can't play with you anymore. We don't need to bring any extra attention here, now do we? Before Narumi could even scream in rage again, the kunoichi closed the gap between them in the blink of an eye. Gojo Fuin! 5 elements seal! She called out, and a purple fire formed on the tips of each of her fingers. She slammed her fingers right onto Narumi's stomach, where the largest chakra coil, but also Narumi's seal for the Kyuubi, was located. Narumi was sent lurching backwards, and all of the Kyuubi's chakra immediately subsided. Narumi clutched at her stomach in pain as she fell to her knees. It felt like every bit of her chakra had been suddenly sapped away, and instead of the warm, familiar feeling of chakra, which she had grown so accustomed to that she didn't even notice, A cold, burning sensation took over every inch of her chakra pathways, starting from the stomach. She screamed in pain as she tried to hold on to consciousness, but the pain proved to be too much. She fell on her face and moved no more. The Kusa Kunoichi stood over the unmoving body of Narumi, considering what to do. What to do with you? Unlike the other two, I have no use for you. I should just kill you before you grow to be too big of a threat. She drew a kunai, preparing to kill the small redhead at her feet, before she paused as a new idea came to her head. Actually, you could prove much more useful alive. Kukuku, yes. You'll prove to be quite the backup plan if that old mummy decides to backstab me. Kukuku, looks like today's your lucky day. She put the kunai away and straightened her straw hat back on her head. She then looked down and noticed a few bugs crawling into her sleeve. She immediately swatted them away. The kunoichi looked behind her with a grin. I've had enough fun for today. I'll let the rest of you live. Kukuku. I'm feeling quite merciful today, aren't I? She looked behind her one last time to see the unconscious bodies of Team 7. You'll live to see another day, if you survive, that is. She then sped off into the forest and vanished. With Team 8, Shino reached out his arms and received the scouts he had sent out. It appears that Team 7 is nearby. However, there is also a dangerous foe nearby as well. Is Team 7 in danger? Sakura asked with concern in her voice. She didn't want any harm befalling Sasuke, but she also didn't want anything bad to happen to Hinata and Narumi, who she had just made peace with. Shino nodded. It would appear so. However, the threat seems to have moved away. How about Team 7? Sakura asked. I'm not certain. However, it would appear they have been defeated. Why? The threat was able to leave the scene on their own terms, while my Kakachu have told me that Team 7 is unmoving. Are they dead? Sakura asked with eyes wide in fear. I'm not certain. However, I will go check. Why? Because they are my friends. Shino then took off towards the direction his Kakachu led him, without waiting for his teammates. Even though his voice didn't suggest any emotion, he was extremely concerned for his friends, and he decided to go against the logical approach of staying away from danger. Fortunately for him, his two teammates followed after him immediately. Hey, maybe if they're down, we could take their scroll. We haven't had any luck with that after all, Kiba suggested. Kiba! How could you even worry about that right now? They could be dead, Sakura scolded Kiba. I know you don't get along with Narumi, but do you really wish she was dead? Kiba shook his head. Geez, why would you say that? I never said I wish they were dead. I'm just saying, if they don't need their scrolls anymore, we should take it. Is that so wrong? Sakura opened her mouth to speak, but she realized she didn't have a response. She looked toward Shino to see if he had anything to say about it. Shino didn't turn around from his position in the front as they hurried towards Team 7 and said nothing. However, he definitely did not enjoy his teammates considering scenarios where his friends were killed. He knew they were alive. They had to be. A few minutes later, they stumbled upon the three bodies of the member of Team 7. Sasuke-kun! Sakura shouted out as she ran for Sasuke, who was lying on the ground with a pale face. Shino, meanwhile, ran over to see if Narumi and Hinata were fine. Kiba took the time to look around the scene and was shocked by the damage that was done to the surrounding area, observing shuriken, kunai, and saban scattered all around, uprooted trees and broken branches, scars in the ground, intense scorch marks, and the muddy pools all around them that seemed to suggest a massive amount of water had been present. Just what kind of battle happened here? Kiba remarked quietly. He couldn't believe that this kind of damage could possibly be the result of two genin teams fighting and felt a bit unsettled. He's breathing. He's alive! Sakura shouted out with Sasuke's head cradled in her arms. Shino got up and nodded as well. It seems Hinata-san and Narumi-san are both alive as well. He then looked around, scanning the surrounding. We have to move them away from here. This place attracts too much attention. He picked up Narumi on his back. Sakura-san, carry Hinata-san. Kiba-san, carry Sasuke-san. Kiba grimaced. He didn't want to carry that arrogant Uchiha. Hey! Who made you leader of this team anyway? Just pick him up, Kiba. The sooner you pick him up, the sooner we can go somewhere else and set up camp. Sakura yelled at him. Kiba rolled his eyes in defiance, but still acquiesced. Sakura could be very troublesome, and he didn't want to get into a long argument with her. He always lost those. Fine. I'll carry him. Let's hurry up and get going then. Shino led the team, following his Kikeichu scouts who had located a tree with a hollowed-out opening in the exposed root system, which formed a sort of cave-like structure. After laying the injured Team 7 inside, Team 8 gathered outside to discuss what to do next. Okay, so they're alive, and we moved them into safety. I think we've gone over and beyond what we're expected to do, Kiba began. Now we have to worry about us. We've been searching for weak opponents all day, and we've found none, and almost got ourselves killed when we accidentally saw those two Kusa genin being killed by that weird Suna shinobi. So, what's your point? Sakura asked. My point is, we should see if Team 7's scroll is the one we need, and if it is, we take it and head to the tower tonight while everyone is setting up camp. If not, maybe we can ambush some sleeping team and take theirs and head over. We don't have the luxury of babysitting Team 7, Kiba replied. Sakura disagreed with what Kiba was saying. I think we should watch over Team 7 until they wake up. I don't want to trade the lives of our friends for a promotion. If they want to give us their scroll out of gratitude, that's one thing, but I won't just take their scroll and abandon them. Look, they're most likely not gonna die. But is that even our responsibility? I'm sure if we hide them well, they'll wake up tomorrow and be fine, Kiba reasoned. There are very likely people around the tower who are waiting for teams with such plans. Instead of wasting energy searching for teams, they've had the opportunity to rest and save up energy. If we ran into one of those teams in our tired state tonight, we're sure to be at a disadvantage. Besides, maybe you and I can fight in the dark by using my Kikeichu or smelling them out, but Sakura-san can't. That's another disadvantage. Two disadvantages that could potentially cost us our lives from being impatient. I suggest we should just make camp and watch over Team 7 tonight, and we can decide what to do tomorrow. Shino proposed. I guess you got a point. Fine, we'll go with your plan then. Kiba sighed as he resigned himself to Shino's plan. Let's get our camp set up then. I will take the first watch tonight. Shino told his teammates, and they began to move. At dawn, several figures hid in the dark canopy above, observing the scene below. So you think they're the ones who took them? The tracks suggested. I don't really see anyone other than the kid dozing off by the tree though. Obviously they're hidden inside the nook of that big tree. He's probably supposed to be standing watch. The figures above quietly discussed what they were going to do. Akamaru suddenly peeked his head out of Kiba's jacket and began sniffing the air. Bark, 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 bark. Kiba jolted awake. What was that? Enemies? Where? Shit. Well, there goes our element of surprise. The shinobi and the canopy said to each other, before they jumped down. By then, Shino and Sakura had awoken as well, and came out to see what was going on. Kiba stood poised to fight, with Akamaru growling at the figures who walked towards them. What the hell do you guys want? Kiba asked aggressively. We know you have Team 7 with you. Hand them over to us, and we'll let you go unharmed. The bandage-sound shinobi from the first exam said as he stepped forward. Kiba's eyes widened when he recognized who it was. It's you! If you really think I'll give up a Konoha comrade to some filthy sound nin, you're sorely mistaken. Kiba shouted out. Good thing you showed up though. I've been meaning to teach you a lesson for looking down on Konoha anyway. Sakura and Shino came and stood on either side of Kiba to back him up. Kiba slammed his fist into his palm. If it's a fight you're looking for, you'll find that not all Konoha ninja are as weak as Kabuto. The sound nin just laughed. Before two figures, the other sound genin from the first exam, stepped up and stood next to him. 3-on-3. Perfect. We got ourselves a fair fight. Now bring it on. Kiba shouted out. Hee 3-on-3 is a fair fight. The sound nin with the black spiky hair replied. However, you should know that shinobi don't fight fair. Sakura and Kiba raised an eyebrow in question, wondering what he meant, before two more genin stepped out and stood on either side of the sound trio. Kusa genin? Sakura commented in surprise. What are you doing working with Sound Ninja? All you need to know is that our master sent us on a mission. If you don't hand over Team 7, we're gonna have to kill you. The Sound Kunoichi replied. Well, enough yapping then. Bring it on, losers! Kiba yelled before pulling out a smoke bomb. Wait! Kiba! Sakura yelled out, but it was too late. Kiba threw the smoke bomb at the feet of the enemy and jumped into action. Shino immediately took the opening to release his Kikeichu and spread them all over the battlefield. Sakura wished they had a better game plan, but went along with Kiba's attack for now, and used the standard procedure Kurenai had taught her, and created a regular clone in her place, while she moved and hid herself with the genjutsu. The enemy shinobi had been caught off guard, as they didn't expect such a brash attack by weaker genin who were outnumbered. Gijin Ninpo, Shikyaku no Jutsu. Imitation Beast Ninja Art, 4 legs technique. Kiba's voice rang out in the smoke. Arg! One of the Kusa genin screamed in pain suddenly when Akamaru bit him in the ankle. He was trying to shake off and kick Akamaru off of his leg when Kiba struck him from the back. Take this! Kiba struck him savagely with his now sharpened claws and ripped off a part of the Kusa genin's outfit and delivered deep scratches into his back, drawing blood. The Kusa genin howled in pain as he fell to his knees. Alright, that's enough! The spiky-haired sound genin shouted out as he stretched out his hands in both directions. This ends now. Zankaha! Decapitating airwaves! The smoke from the smoke bomb was blown away, taking away the advantage Shino and Kiba had in fighting in low visibility conditions. You fucking mutt! The Kusa genin shouted as he ripped Akamaru off of his leg and threw him into Kiba, who caught him in his arms. You got us with your surprise attack, but now you've lost your advantage. We'll make you pay for that. The bandage team commented, before the 5 of them rushed forward. The Kusa genin who had been attacked by Kiba and Akamaru was enraged and out for vengeance, and attacked Kiba, supported by the sound genin with black spiky hair. The other Kusa genin and the lone kunoichi of the sound trio attacked Shino, while the bandage sound team went for Sakura. Kiba and Akamaru did their best to dodge their 2 attackers. The Kusa genin's injured leg made it easy to avoid him, but the spiky-haired one was making it difficult with the blasts of air that were coming from his palms. Shit! What kind of ability is that anyway? I know we can take out that Kusa genin, but that other guy's is freaking annoying, Kiba commented as he hid behind a tree to avoid the blast. He had to jump aside with Akamaru, when the tree was blasted apart from the spiky-haired teen's attack. That was close. If we don't go all out, we might be in real danger, Akamaru. Kiba told Akamaru, who barked back in agreement. Being outnumbered, he needed to even out the odds so he could focus on taking out the injured Kusa genin. Kiba pulled out a pill and tossed it to Akamaru, whose fur began to turn red. Here we go! Jujin Banshin, beast human clone. With a puff of smoke, Akamaru transformed into an identical version of Kiba's feral form, making it difficult for their opponents to tell them apart. Now that's more like it. 2 against 2. Let's go, Akamaru! Kiba yelled, and they charged at their 2 opponents. Meanwhile, the bandaged teen swung at Sakura with the arm with the gauntlet. The arm passed by harmlessly, as the clone faded away. A clone? Shit! She must have made this during the distraction with the smoke. He thought to himself quickly, before he guessed where she'd strike from next. Kia! Sakura shouted as she jumped towards him from behind, with a kunai drawn for extra damage. Having expected this, however, the teen spun around and grabbed her by the throat and slammed her into the ground. As soon as she hit the ground, however, she disintegrated into a pile of cherry blossom petals. What the dash! He was cut short when Sakura delivered a roundhouse kick to his face, sending him falling backwards. She tried to follow through with another attack, but the sound genin caught her leg. Nice traps with the genjutsu, but now it's my turn, he told Sakura, though a bit of blood seeped through the bandages around his mouth. Sakura ripped her leg away from his grip and tried to punch him, but the sound genin ducked to dodge and punched back. Sakura leaned back to dodge by instinct, but then she remembered what happened to Kabuto. She felt her ears ringing, then felt nauseous immediately after. Her vision began to blur before she fell onto her hands and knees, where she proceeded to throw up. The bandaged teen walked over to her and grabbed her by the hair. I hope you had fun with your little genjutsus, because it's my turn to have fun now. A little bit further away from the battle scene unknown to the 8 combatants, there were 3 more genin present on the scene. Oh heck no. Let go of me, Shika. I need to help Sakura. Shikamaru shushed Ino, as he clamped his hands over her mouth and pulled her back to the bushes they were hiding behind. Are you stupid? You're just gonna rush out and help? Did you forget we're like the weakest team in this entire competition? Shikamaru told Ino. Well, what do you expect me to do? Do nothing as I watched my friend get punched in her face repeatedly? Ino snapped back. I'm sorry, but I'm not doing nothing. Shikamaru grabbed her wrist and pulled her back down when she tried to go help Sakura again. Listen, I never said we'd do nothing. Then why aren't we doing anything? She asked angrily. Like I said, we're the weakest team here. We won't be of much help, other than Chuji, if we just go out there in the open. Shikamaru responded. Then? We need to have a plan. I think I have one already, so come listen. Ino and Chuji huddled over to hear Shikamaru's plan. Okay, so here's our plan. Chapter 47, Unexpected Help. Sakura was still disoriented from the bandage sound Nin's attack, but she knew she still had to get out of his grasp if she wanted to have any chance of beating him. They were already outnumbered, and if she wasn't able to keep him occupied, she knew her teammates would be in greater danger, and she didn't want to be the weak link that brought her team down. When she thought he was distracted, she drew a kunai and tried to sneakily stab the teen's foot, but he easily raised his leg to dodge her surprise blow and brought it back down to stomp on her wrist, rendering it immobile and disarming her. A feisty little bitch, aren't you? Didn't expect to see that with your long, pink hair and all, but I'll admit you have more bite to you than I expected. Sakura struggled as she fought against his foot to free up her arm, while she quickly reached over to draw a kunai with her free arm. The sound genin yanked her head back roughly, nearly snapping her neck, to disrupt her movement. He then smacked her square on the face with an open hand, cutting her lips open, and causing her nose to make her eyes water. I said you had more bite than I expected, but that was only because I didn't expect anything from you. You're still a pathetic bitch, so don't try anything funny or I'll slit your throat. He then turned her head around by her hair to show her how her teammates were faring. Each of them was facing 2 opponents at a time and had their hands full. It seemed like they were always just one step away from disaster, and barely keeping their heads above the water. Your friends seem to be handling themselves surprisingly well despite the numerical handicap. But how well do you think they'll do if that 2-on-1 became a 3-on-1? Sakura's eyes began to water as she cursed her weakness. If only she was stronger, her friends wouldn't be in danger. Despite all of the hard work she had put in with Kurenai-sensei, she was still too weak to help her friends. What is it that you want from me? Sakura asked in defeat. Please leave us alone. We'll give you our scroll. The bandaged teen threw his head back in laughter. You think we care about the stupid scroll? We want that other team that you're protecting back there. Sakura looked over at the unconscious bodies of Team 7, then looked back at her 2 teammates who could possibly die in a vain effort to protect Team 7. Why you want us to hand them over? To you? She asked incredulously. Did he expect her to betray them? Betray her Sasuke-kun? Hand them over? Like we need your permission to get them in the first place? Nah. We're going to take them by force. Meanwhile, why don't we watch the show? Sakura looked over at her comrades as they continued to go on the back foot at the onslaught of their enemies, a sight her captor was watching like it was simply a source of entertainment for him. She wished she could help, but without a proper opening, a wrong move could end up with a kunai in her throat. Is dodging and running away all you're going to do? The Kusa genin fighting Shino shouted out as he swung his whip composed of special thorn vines that grew in Kusa. If only he could get one good hit in, the poison would do the job of paralyzing him. If you weren't constantly talking and getting in my way, I would have gotten him already. Now shut up so I can do my thing. The sound Kunoichi shouted as she threw several senbon at Shino once again. Shino jumped to the side to dodge the senbon, but it was getting more and more difficult to keep track of all of the senbon that was thrown at him, having to keep his eyes on the Kusa genin's constantly moving whip as well. He didn't know what the bells on some of the senbon were for, but he wasn't trying to find out, and silently ordered his insects to cut the strings connecting them, something the sound Kunoichi didn't notice. He reasoned he could easily take care of one or the other with his Kikeichu, but he wanted to keep them discreet until he could set up his attack to deal with both of them simultaneously, so they couldn't develop a counter for them. He'd have to stay patient and wait for them to slip up or wait until an opportunity showed itself. Come on, Akamaru! Gutsuga! Fong passing Fong! Kiba and Akamaru began to spin like a drill as they tried to attack both of their opponents at once. The 2 spinning drills of destruction flew towards the spiky-haired Sound Genin and the injured Kusa Genin simultaneously, trying to use the principle of good offense being the best defense. Got him now! Kiba thought to himself as he flew closer and closer to the injured Kusa Genin, inches away from tearing into him. However, he was left shocked when he simply passed through him, as if the Kusa Genin was composed of vapors. Kiba skidded onto his feet as he came to a stop. What the hell is going on here? Is this some sort of genjutsu? He began sniffing the air to get a sense of where his enemy was. Even if his eyes tricked him, he could always trust his nose. Ugh, what's this strange smell in the air? Kiba thought as he tried to ignore the smell and locate his opponent's scent to make sure he was seeing correctly. But his scent suggests he's right here? But I just went through him like he was a ghost. What's going on here? Heh. You won't be able to find me with your pathetic sense of smell, you dumb mutt. The Kusa-genin taunted as he saw the confused face on Kiba. Kiba growled in anger. Why you? I'm gonna tear you to shreds. He lunged at the teen again with his sharpened claws, but his hands simply passed through the teen again. Meanwhile, Akamaru wasn't having better luck against the spiky-haired teen, who kept blasting him away when he got close. What's the point of having a strong attack if you can't even land it? The sound genin mocked, as Akamaru landed next to his master to regroup. Grr, have any idea what's going on here, Akamaru? Kiba asked. Bark! Bark! Huh! You think it has to do with this sweet smell in the air? The Kusa-genin chuckled. Looks like your dog is smarter than you, huh? He took you long enough to notice my pollen jutsu. Each time you sniff, you take in more and more of my genjutsu-inducing pollen. So go ahead, try to sniff me out, mutt. Kiba was furious, but also confused as to what to do next. What could he trust in when he couldn't trust his nose? He decided to ignore the Kusa-genin for now. He was injured anyway, and he figured he'd just make himself hard to hit for the crippled enemy while he focused on someone else. He turned around to take on the spiky-haired teen, who he could at least see. Alright, if Grass Boy wants to hide, then I'll just take you out. Akamaru! Kiba and Akamaru got in their stance as they prepared to launch their combo attack on the spiky-haired sound genin. With the two of them attacking simultaneously from different directions, it would be hard for him to blow them both away. However, when they tried to launch themselves towards him, they found themselves unable to move. What the hell? I can't move a muscle! Akamaru! What's going on? Akamaru barked to tell Kiba that he was just as confused. Heh, are you so scared that you're frozen stiff? PFFTT. I mean, what do you expect from a green-ass rookie? The sound genin mocked Kiba as he pointed both of his arms towards the Inuzuka genin and his dog. Well, now that you're finally still, I guess I'll treat you to a front row seat to a jutsu you've been missing out on. Say hello to my Zankukyakua. Extreme decapitating airwaves. Kiba gulped as he continued to try to move. He had seen the devastating effect of the sound genin's attacks on the trees around him, and tried to jump out of the way as he wanted no part of this elevated version, but he had no control over his body. It looked like this was the end for the young Konoha genin and his companion. However, being way too caught up in the moment, both parties were unable to see the thin shadow that was connected to Kiba and Akamaru. Zaka grinned with wicked delight, waiting for the cloud of debris he kicked up with his attack settled down, expecting to see the mangled corpse of the Konoha genin and his mutt. Kiba! Sakura shouted in fear for her teammate's safety, as she watched the massive air wave get blasted towards him. Well, wasn't that quite the show? Aren't you glad I kept you alive to see it? The bandaged teen said sarcastically. However, when the dust settled down, everyone was shocked to see Kiba and Akamaru pick themselves up far from the center of the blast, having been pushed out of the way. Instead, they found the Kusa-genin who had been injured by Kiba in the beginning of the battle, in his place and strewn over a log that had been blown back with him, his body cut and broken in numerous places. What the hell? Why did you get in the way? The spiky-haired teen shouted out in anger and confusion, but the Kusa-genin was obviously no longer in a state to reply, apparently having thrown himself into harm's way for some strange reason. The two enemies that Shino was facing quickly glanced over at the commotion to see what was happening. Shino took that second to quickly release a small swarm of his Kikaichu stealthily. The two were only distracted for a few seconds and resumed their attack, thinking their position to be the same as just a couple seconds ago. However, in the short window they took their eyes off of Shino, the tables had already turned. The Kusa-genin swung at Shino with his serrated grass whip again, but was left shocked when it basically disintegrated. What the? The Kusa-genin gasped out as he looked at his once trusty weapon. A closer look revealed a bunch of insects chewing up the whip, quickly consuming it. What the fuck? What are these bugs? The Kusa-genin shouted out in confusion, as he tried to brush the insects off the handle of the whip. However, that proved to be a mistake when the bugs jumped onto his arms instead. Ag! The sound Kunoichi shouted in terror a bit further away as hundreds of bugs began to crawl all over her as well. What the hell are these things? Where did they come from? Get these off of me! Get them off! Shino looked at them silently as he stretched his arms towards the screaming enemies. Now that they were occupied with the Kikeichu, he could go on the offensive without distraction. A black cloud began to fly out of Shino's sleeves, and the number of insects on the enemies began to grow and grow until they were completely covered and appeared to just be a black mass. Their screams died down when the Kikeichu quickly drained them of their chakra. They soon went limp and collapsed, and the Kikeichu returned to Shino. He then turned around to see if he could help Sakura. The bandage team could see the situation had turned against them, and when he saw Shino take out two of his allies and Zaku struggling to keep up with Kiba's dogged attacks, he pulled out a kunai to slit Sakura's throat and jump in the fight to salvage the situation. Sakura closed her eyes shut in fear as the kunai came swinging down to her throat. It looked like this would be it for her. What the hell? She opened one eye to see what was happening when the expected slash from the kunai didn't come. Sakura opened her eyes to see the bandaged teen frozen mid-motion, trying to force himself to complete his attack. Why can't I move? The sound genin asked himself as he continued to strain against the force that kept him restrained. His body moved on its own, and he was forced to throw the kunai away and let go of Sakura's long hair. A blonde kunoichi quickly jumped in to grab Sakura and dash off next to a rotund genin who stood a short distance away, where she turned around to face him. Aino? Chuji? Sakura gasped out in shock. You keep your dirty hands off of my friends! Ino shouted out towards the bandaged teen, who began to walk forward as Shikamaru emerged from the bushes behind him, mirroring his movement. Looks like you're our hostage now, Shikamaru commented as he stepped forward. I'm sure you can see that your numerical advantage is no longer there. The bandaged teen knew he could still use the device on his arm, the melody arm, to attack even from a static position if necessary, but he could see the writing on the wall. If they continued to fight, there was very little chance of him and his teammate Zaku taking on 6 genin and coming out on top. Alright. You got me. I can see that we no longer have the upper hand. You sure don't, Ino shouted. Not so fun when you're the hostage, now is it? The bandaged teen knew he had to calm down the rash blonde, or there was the chance that she could potentially whip up the others into a fury and kill him. Look, you win. I'll admit that. Now I ask that you let us go. I'll hand over our scroll in exchange for our lives. Humph. You think we didn't hear you when you turned down Sakura's proposal for the same thing? What makes you think we shouldn't just kill you now? Ino fired back. Well, first of all, I don't believe you're capable of killing anyone, he replied. What? Why don't I show you second? The bandaged sound genin interjected, cutting off Ino. I didn't kill your friend, did I? Even though I had the opportunity to easily do so, I can't say for the others, but I never intended on killing any of your friends. Ino didn't buy the sound genin's claim of not intending to kill anyone, but she couldn't deny the fact that he did indeed let Sakura live for whatever reason until the situation went out of control. And she also didn't want to admit it, but she was not ready to kill anyone yet, no matter how mad she was right now. The sound genin smiled under his bandages when he saw Ino's expression. He seemed to have convinced her, and judging by how talkative she was some sort of leader figure in the newly arrived team. Maybe he could get out of this alive after all. Ino looked over at Chuji and Shikamaru, asking for their opinion. They gave her a shrug to show that they'd go with her decision. Well, fine. Hand over your scroll. Better yet, tell us where your scroll is before we release you, so you can't try anything sneaky. It's in the upper pocket on my left leg. The bandaged teen quickly replied. He wasn't worried about losing some stupid scroll. He knew he could easily pick off a few of the weaker teams and get them back. Besides, as long as he completed his mission, his master would promote him anyway. This temporary setback would be fine. Chuji stepped forward and searched the aforementioned pocket and found the scroll. He raised it up to show his teammates. An earth scroll. That's quite convenient. Now I guess we don't have to worry about searching for our scroll so much, and we can relax a little. Shikamaru commented. You can relax after we get to the tower, you lazy bum. Ino replied as she rolled her eyes. Now tell your friend to surrender too, or we'll help Kiba finish him off. The bandaged teen looked towards his friend who was looking ragged after taking on Kiba and Akamaru's relentless attacks, despite having dodged the majority of them. Zaka. Quit fighting. We're leaving. The bandaged teen shouted out to his teammate, Sokka was pissed. He couldn't believe they had to surrender to an inferior enemy, just because some other randoms got themselves involved. Still, he couldn't deny that he was struggling in his fight. It was just a bad matchup with his opponent's numerical and overwhelming speed advantage. He'd get his revenge later though, he thought to himself. Grr. I can't believe we're being forced to run with our tails between our legs. Sokka growled to himself. Fine, Dosu. Let's get going then. You think I'm gonna let you go, now that I have you against the ropes? Kiba asked with a grin on his face. However, his smug grin fell off of his face when his pink-haired teammate yelled at him. Just let them go, Kiba. We're done. We won. Don't make this into a bigger mess than it needs to be. Kiba rolled his eyes. Right when he was about to show this arrogant sound bastard who was boss. Fine, Kiba said in resignation. Take your beat-up losers with you and get out of here. If I catch you again, I'm really gonna show you what happens when you mess with an Inuzuka. Dosu stumbled forward when Shikamaru released the jutsu holding him. Take Kafin with you, I'll take Kin and Toge, he told Sokka as he picked up the unconscious bodies of the genin defeated by Shino. The defeated sound genin picked up their comrades and began to walk away from Team 8 and 10, before Dosu turned his head to address them one last time. I'd be careful if I were you. That team you have in the tree? They'll bring you more trouble than they're worth. Don't get yourself involved in things that are beyond you. With that parting statement, Zaku and Dosu left with their defeated comrades on their shoulders. What the heck is he talking about? Kiba asked as he came to join the group. Shikamaru shrugged. Who knows? But he's not wrong. That team is probably the most troublesome team out there. Despite his nonchalant and unconcerned tone, however, Shikamaru couldn't help but be concerned for his friends. He looked over wondering if they were alright. What the hell had happened to them? Ino felt the same way, but unlike Shikamaru, she ran over immediately once the coast was clear. Narumi-chan! Sasuke-kun! Hinata-chan! She dropped to her knees and immediately began looking over Team 7. Sakura! What happened to them? Are they alright? She asked as she went over the many small injuries that were all over them. They're alive, but they've been unconscious ever since we found them a couple days ago. Sakura responded. I can't seem to figure out what's wrong with them. Where did you find them? Shikamaru asked as he joined Ino, though he stayed on his feet. My Kikaichu found them in this state after they apparently lost to a powerful enemy. I have not been able to track the enemy down, but I'd prefer to stay away from such a foe if they're capable of taking down the strongest team from our year on their own. Shino answered. Man, I still can't believe there are people in this competition at that level. You should have seen the place. It looked like several storms and a wildfire wrecked the place. Kiba recounted. They were put in this state by just one genin? Ino asked in shock. How is that even possible? Team 7 is strong for a rookie team, but most teams here have way more experience than us. The other villages use the Chunin exams as a stage to show off their strongest genin to show their village's strength, you know. It's not unheard of for villages to hold off on promoting a Chunin-level genin so that they appear stronger to other villages during the Chunin exams. Shikamaru explained. Is it that hard to believe that they could have run into one of those teams? Ino felt like she was in way over her head in this competition. How was one genin able to take on Sasuke, Hinata, Narumi, and all of Narumi's clones? Alone? Narumi alone could probably beat 5 of her. The two teams became somber at the thought of such competition being in this forest with them. One unlucky encounter, and their lives might end that day. So, you guys have your scrolls yet? Kiba asked, trying to break through the awkward silence. We just got ours from that sound team, Chuji replied. Hey! We did most of the fighting. How come you guys get to have the scroll? Kiba complained. Their timely arrival gave us the opening we needed for our counterattack, and they saved the life of our teammate. I believe it is fitting if they keep the scroll, Shino told Kiba. But still, we need our scroll too. What do you say we stick together for a bit? At least until Team 7 wakes up? If there really are competitors that are way stronger than us, wouldn't it be a good idea to stick together? Sakura proposed. After all, they never said we couldn't, right? Shikamaru nodded. That's not a bad idea. Besides, if we team up, we can split the work, and that means we don't have to do as much work individually. Ino rolled her eyes. Of course you'd say that. Sakura and the others chuckled at Ino's reaction, until Ino addressed her. By the way, Sakura, there's something I need to ask you. with Karina pair of red eyes squinted open as the sunlight came in through cracks between the curtains on the windows and interrupted their rest. Ugh! Stupid son. Let me get a couple more hours of sleep. The redhead owner of those eyes mumbled to herself as she turned away from the window to get into a more comfortable position on the super comfortable bed she was on. She hummed a small purr of satisfaction as she settled back into a comfortable position, and slowly began to drift back into sleep in this soft, but still firm bed that was magnitudes better than any bed she had ever slept on before. They sure don't have beds like this in Kusa, she thought to herself. Or at the lodging they gave us in Konoha. She laid in her bed, content, for a few seconds. She then realized something. She wasn't in Kusa, and she wasn't in the forest, and she wasn't back at her team's lodging. Then where was she? She jolted up from her comfortable position and began patting around for her glasses. Her hands landed on her glasses, which were on the small drawer that was next to the bed. She put on her glasses and took a look around to see where she was. She admired the relatively simple, but high-quality room, which was decorated with numerous pictures, posters, and stuffed animals, the most notable one being an orange fox, which gave the room a cute and cozy atmosphere that was fit for a young girl. Her memories of the previous night came pouring back to her when she saw the pictures of the owner of the room she was staying in. Flashback while Karen tried to pick her jaw back off of the floor at the revelation of her newly discovered clan head being the son of one of the most dangerous shinobi to ever exist, which by extension meant her friendly new friend and cousin was the daughter of said man. Naruto addressed Narumi's clones. So did you just want to introduce her to me, or is there something more? Naruto asked, already suspecting that there was more to this than a simple introduction. Oh, well you see dash. Narumi began before she cut off by a loud growling sound. The Nara's siblings simultaneously turned around to face the source of the sound. Under their gaze, Karen's cheeks reddened to match the color of her hair and eyes. Sorry. Didn't mean to do that, she mumbled out, embarrassed of the inopportune growling of her stomach. Say, did you have dinner? Naruto asked Karen, now curious of the journey she took before she came to him. Yeah, she totally stole the ramen I was gonna have, one of the Narumi clones complained. You made another one! Stop complaining! The other one scolded. Naruto chuckled as the clones argued with each other. Man, Narumi is gonna be pissed her clones ate up the ramen she was saving. Karen sucked on her teeth when she found out she had eaten something Narumi had been saving, feeling bad at having eaten stuff without Narumi's permission. Wait, or did her clones' permission count as hers? But seeing how the clones seemed to argue with each other, they seemed to have differing thoughts or personalities. How did this all work out? She was taken out of her contemplations of clone dynamics when Naruto addressed her. So, I hear you like ramen? How would you like to try the best ramen in town instead of some instant ones? Karen didn't want to be a burden to someone she just met and was planning on politely refusing, but when her growling stomach made its presence known again, she couldn't help but nod, which caused Naruto to chuckle. At Ikaraku soon after, the three Uzumaki soon found themselves at Ikaraku's. Hello, Tuchi-san, I am San. Naruto greeted as he lifted the half curtains of his favorite ramen stand. It's been a while. Naruto, my boy. Welcome. It sure has been a while. You haven't been here in nearly 2 weeks. Tuchi then noticed 3 redheads who walking into his store. Narumi. Wait, Narumis? And who is this? Hi, old man. I am Nei-chan. Say hi to my new sister. Karen. Tuchi and Iam looked shocked as they turned to look at Karen. Iam quickly changed her look of shock into a smile as he greeted the newest patron of their ramen stand. Well, it's nice to meet you, Karen. I'm Iam. Meanwhile, Tuchi gave Naruto a confused look. Sister. Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose as the 3 redheads took a seat. She's apparently from the Uzumaki clan. That would make her our cousin of some sort, but it seems Narumi is keen on calling her a sister for whatever reason. Naruto replied. Well, it's because I always wanted a sister, but we couldn't get one before. But now, we have a new family member. One of the clones explained, as the other clone looked over the menu to see what she wanted. Wow. That's pretty cool. It must be so exciting to discover members of your clan that you haven't met before. Iam commented. Narumi nodded with a huge smile. Oh, you have no idea. I already know we're going to be best friends. Karen felt warm inside at being accepted wholeheartedly already but felt a little awkward at meeting so many new people at once. She just sat there with a polite smile, giving short answers or nods to the questions that came at her. So, what can I get you tonight? Tucci asked the only guests that were in his stand in this latish hour, it being close to closing time. I'm alright. I've already had dinner, Naruto answered. I'll have 3 tonkatsu ramens. Each of the Narumi clones shouted out in glee. Naruto shook his head. Oh no, you won't. We're only here for Karen. Narumi's clones put on her puppy dog face and pleaded. But Nai-chan. We're your sister. Clones. You guys are clones of my sister. I'm not spending money on clones. He then turned to Karen. What do you want to have? Karen looked at the large variety available and had trouble choosing. She hadn't really had ramen like this often and wasn't even familiar with most of these variations. Narumi's clones could see the trouble Karen was having and decided to help so they could enjoy it vicariously through her. How about the tonkatsu ramen? Or the miso ramen? Oh. The shio ramen is real good too. Oh. That sounds pretty good. I'll have the first one she mentioned. Karen replied. Tucci gave her a smile as he nodded. I am. Prepare noodles for 1 tonkatsu. As the father and daughter duo got to preparing Karen's meal, the Uzumakis began to talk. By the way, Nai-chan, why are you so dressed up? Narumi asked. I didn't even know you had clothes like this. Naruto began to scratch the back of his head as he chuckled awkwardly. Narumi's eyes widened as a thought came to her head, one influenced by the shoujo mangas she liked to read. Wait, could you have been on a date? Naruto shut her down immediately. A date? No. I just had dinner at some fancy place, and they apparently had some sort of stupid dress code. Karen smiled a little lecherously as she thanked the restaurant in her head for the eye candy they provided for her. I mean, there was nothing wrong with just enjoying his good looks, right? It wasn't like she wanted anything from him, and they were probably distant cousins after all. Who did you eat with? The other clone asked her brother, now in full-blown interrogation mode. It was supposed to be Izumi, me, and Shizen-san, but Izumi couldn't make it. Narumi's eyes widened again. So, you just had dinner alone with Shizen-nei-chan at a fancy restaurant? That's totally a date! Oh my gosh, that is so cute! How was it? Are you guys a thing now? I totally support it. What? I told you it wasn't a date. Me and Shizen-san have nothing going on. Naruto replied quickly, trying to shut down any confusions about his relationship with Shizen. Still, he couldn't help but think back to the dinner he just had with Shizen. He did have a good time with her once they got over the initial awkwardness. However, he couldn't help but wonder what it would have been like if it was a date with Mei. She would have been very pleased at him finally dressing up in clothes that wasn't just shinobi attire. Maybe she would have even rewarded him for that. His cheeks lit up at the thought. Then he remembered the fact that they couldn't be together. He sighed as he reminded himself that what they had couldn't be anything more than a past fling. Still, that didn't make him miss her any less. Narumi and Karen observed his facial expressions as he seemed to drift off into thought. What the heck was he thinking about that caused him to go from nostalgic, embarrassed, to sad? Narumi was about to voice her questions, when Naruto seemed to snap back from his thoughts and asked Karen a question before anyone could address him. Anyway, so, what was it that you wanted to speak to me about? Naruto asked. It took Karen a moment to gather her thoughts and courage, but she soon opened her mouth. I don't want to live in Kusa anymore. I want to live here, with you and Narumi. I want to be with my clan. She began. Naruto's eyes widened. Wow. That was a bomb. Sure, they were part of the same clan and that was cool and all, but a foreign ninja wanting to leave their village to join another? That sounded like a nightmare to sort out. I hate Kusa. I hate how I'm treated there, and I don't want to be used like some object like my mother was. And my mother died because of them. I hate that place. She began to scream as she became more and more furious the more she thought about why she wanted to leave. Naruto, Narumi, and Tucci were all taken aback a little at her sudden outburst after she had been relatively quiet. Put the bowl of ramen in front of Karen and quietly retreated to the back. Karen stared at her toes, feeling awkward after letting her emotions loose like that. She couldn't bear to raise her head and meet the eyes of the people around her. She was surprised when Narumi's clones on either side of her put their arms around her to comfort her. Don't worry. If anyone can help you, it's my Nai-chan. Isn't that right? Narumi's clones asked Naruto. Naruto gave Karen a warm smile as he tried to comfort her. That's right. We're family after all, aren't we? Karen's eyes widened as she looked at Naruto in surprise. It won't be simple, but I'll do anything and everything I can to get you here, so don't you worry about it, okay? I promise you that as the clan head of the Uzumaki clan. Who was she that they'd go so far to help her? She had never had anyone like this in her life ever since her mother passed away years ago. It was honestly a little overwhelming for her, and Karen's eyes began to tear up. Naruto patted Karen's back. Now let's not let your ramen go cold, or Tuchi-san is not gonna be happy, isn't that right? He joked in an attempt to brighten the dark atmosphere. Karen wiped her eyes and smiled as she picked up her chopsticks. The food in front of her looked and smelled absolutely delicious, and she sure as heck was not about to let it go cold. Flashback, and Karen looked at the pictures of Naruto and Narumi that were all over the place and smiled. If things went well for her, she would be part of this loving family. That was all she had ever wanted. Knock, knock, knock. Yes? Karen asked in response. Karen? Are you awake? Naruto's voice asked from the other side of the door. Yeah. I'm up, she replied. Great! Would you like to come down and join me for breakfast? Karen's smile widened on her face. Of course. I'll be right down. She threw her blanket off of her and slipped her feet into the slippers she was given before heading for the door. It looked like things were finally turning around for her. With the sound trio. Yeah, it looks like he's not coming back, Dosa confirmed after he put down Kaffin's lifeless hand. Kin looked nervous as she paced back and forth after being revived from her unconsciousness. Oh no, this is a disaster. What are we gonna do when Orochimaru-sama finds out we failed our mission? Sokka slammed his fist into a tree next to him. Damn it! If only those fucking bastards didn't stick their nose into our business. We could have easily beaten those damn weaklings and gotten those Uchiha and Hyuga brats. Kin swallowed her saliva nervously as she wondered what would happen to them. Do you think he'll punish us? What do you think he'll do to us? Dosa helped bandage Toj up before addressing his team. It's not over yet. We can still kill them later on in the tournament. All we have to do is stay in the tournament long enough until we can face them. After that it doesn't matter. Kin's face regained a bit of its color when she heard that. Why yeah. You're right. We can still do this, right, Sokka? Sokka cracked his knuckles as he scowled. The next time I come across those bastards, I'll tear them to pieces. Dosa nodded. Once we get the job done, everything will be fine. Even if we get disqualified from the tournament, Orochimaru-sama promised he'd promote us as long as we got the job done before the event. The three sound genin were reinvigorated at the thought. So shall we go get us some of these scrolls then? Kin and Zaku replied to Dosu with a smirk. On the fourth day in the forest. Ha! Did you guys see that? I told you me and Akamaru can handle anyone if we work together. Kiba bragged as he walked back into camp with Shino and Shikamaru after getting another scroll. Shikamaru picked his ear with his pinky as he tried to ignore Kiba's boasting. Yeah, whatever. We wouldn't have needed to engage them all at once if you weren't so loud and troublesome in the first place. It was still an improvement compared to the previous encounter. Why? Because Kiba didn't forget his role this time. Shino commented. Shikamaru shrugged. I suppose that's true. I'm just glad we got the right scroll this time, so we don't have to go out again. Shuji was coming back from foraging some berries when he noticed the team sent out to get scrolls coming back. Ino! Sakura! They're back! The two girls exited the small cave under the tree to greet the team. Were you guys able to get the right scroll this time? Ino asked. Kiba nodded. Yup. It was easy too. You guys should have seen the way I was kicking ass. Kiba began excitedly explaining the story of how they got the scroll, and having nothing better to do, the team that stayed behind sat down with the returning team and listened. The 6 genin were having a relatively good time talking, when Narumi began to squirm. Where am I? She mumbled to herself with a raspy voice, but nobody noticed she was awake yet. As she tried to make sense of where she was and what happened, the memories of what had happened before she was knocked unconscious began to flood her mind. She jolted up in fear when she remembered what had happened to Sasuke and Hinata. No! Sasuke! Hinata! Team 8 and Team 10 jumped up from their position and turned to look at Narumi when they heard Narumi's wail. Seeing that Narumi was crying and freaking out, Ino rushed to her side and embraced her with a hug, patting her back gently to calm her down. Ino? Narumi stammered out through her tears. What are you doing here? Sure, everything is alright. We found you, Sasuke-kun, and Hinata-chan hurt, so we came together to look after you guys. Ino replied. Narumi pulled herself away from Ino's embrace and looked over her teammates and best friends. Looking over them, she could see that even though they were unconscious, their chests were rising and falling as they breathed. Are they okay? Narumi asked nervously, still trying to understand her situation. Ino nodded and gave her a soft smile. They're hurt, but they're still alive. Narumi's shoulders began to shake as she began to cry. I thought they were dead. I saw her kill them. Who? Shikamaru asked, leaning by the entrance of the root cave. Who is her? Narumi's face paled as she remembered her fight, and how they were completely dismantled like they were academy children. I don't know, but she was so strong, stronger than anyone I've ever seen. Stronger than some jonin. She calmed down slightly when Sakura brought her some water to help her calm down. Thanks. Once she drank her water, Shikamaru started his questioning again, trying to get some intel. Narumi, what was the person who defeated you like? Is there anything you know about her? She was from Kyuubi, I think. She was really creepy though. She moved so weird. It was like she didn't have any bones. And she used snakes. She shivered at the memory. Super creepy. Shikamaru got up from his leaning position and peered into the cave to make eye contact with Narumi. Do you happen to know anything about these marks? He asked in a serious voice that Narumi was surprised to hear for the first time, as he pointed at Sasuke and Hinata's necks. What marks? She looked at the side of their necks and found strange symbols at the place where they were bitten. This is where that snaky woman bit them. Narumi gasped in shock. She began to look at them more closely, curious at what was going on. They seemed to be some sort of seal. Huh? A seal? Kiba wondered out loud. She traced her finger around the seal, to get the feel of the stroke movement. This looks like Sasuke's Sharingan pattern, but these characters around it, it's like some sort of curse seal, curse seal. Shikamaru asked with one eyebrow raised. Yeah. Regular seals are mostly used for storing things. But curse seals can be used for a bunch of different things, and they're often used to do bad things. That's why they're called cursed seals. Narumi informed Shikamaru. Sakura looked at Sasuke with concern. Curse seal? What did that mean for him? Hey, aren't you good with seals? If they're bad, can't you get rid of them? Ino asked Narumi. Narumi shook her head. I haven't learned about curse seals yet. But I know you can't just get rid of them. It's more complicated than that. So, there's nothing you can do? Sakura asked in concern. Narumi thought for a moment before responding. Well, I can't get rid of them, but I can do something to keep it under control for a bit. You can? Sakura asked in surprise. She knew seals were really complicated things, and usually only the most erudite of shinobi would have any experience with them. Not to bag on Narumi or anything, but Narumi didn't seem like she would be someone who would have that kind of knowledge. Narumi nodded. But it'll take a lot of preparation, and I can't be disturbed while I do it. You guys will need to make sure I'm safe. Ino gave her a confident smile. Well, what do you think we were doing this whole time? You can leave it to us. Narumi smiled. Alright. But this time, let me help you out. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Shadow clone technique. When the puff of smoke that appeared with their summoning dissipated, Narumi expected to see a gang of clones which could help her. Instead, she only got one clone to appear, which shocked her. Well, what the heck? Where are the others? Narumi wondered out loud. The clone looked to her right and left before she shrugged at Narumi. I dunno. You tell me. Narumi sighed. There was something wrong with her too, and sorting all of this out was going to be troublesome. Chapter 48, The Preliminaries Part 1. At the tower. So, these are all the sensei of the teams that haven't been eliminated? Hiruzen asked as he stepped into the arena under the tower in the Forest of Death. Hate nodded. Though it would be more accurate to say these are the sensei of the teams that haven't been eliminated yet. Their allotted time is about end in a few minutes. Hiruzen nodded in understanding as he looked around. He noticed the Jonin sensei with their genin teams from Suna, Oto, and Kiri. He also noticed 2 of the older teams from Konoha who had made it through. However, none of the rookie teams had made it through yet, and though there wasn't any evidence of them being eliminated just yet, every second that passed by lowered their chances of making it into the next round, suggesting something may have happened. Hiruzen frowned as he looked at the visibly worried Jonin sensei of the rookie teams. Did I make a mistake in allowing rookie teams to participate? Did I place too much faith in the Jonin sensei's judgment? Even Naruto, who was known for not usually having the most expressive face, was visibly concerned. What's going on here? There shouldn't have been any other genin who were able to give them any trouble, let alone defeat them. How have they not made it back yet? Did something go wrong? He thought to himself. Do you think we made a mistake in entering our genin? Kurenai asked out loud in concern, breaking the silence between the three genin sensei. For a brief moment, the other two stayed silent, wondering if she had a point. Then, Asuma put his hand on her shoulder from beside her. We should have more faith in our genin. If they were eliminated, we would have heard about it. Let's just give them a few more minutes. I suppose you're right. Though at this point, I don't even care if they pass. I just hope they're alright. Kurenai admitted. Are we sure they're not dead? What are the chances that they show up at this point? One of the Chunins helping out with the exams asked Ibiki, who was also present. I'll suppose we'll just have to wait and see, he replied. And by the way, I'd keep my mouth shut if I were you. Huh? Why? Ibiki glanced over at Naruto, Asuma, and Kurenai, who was giving the Chunin the death glare. I'm not sure those Jonin sensei like hearing the sound of your voice all that much. The Chunin gulped when he saw their murderous glares. Why yeah, of course. Oh, I forgot. Enko-san wanted me to, organize a few things. He blurted out as he quickly slipped away from the scene to hide from the Jonin sensei of the rookie teams who looked like they were ready to slit his throat at any moment. Heh. Yeah, you go do that. Ibiki chuckled to himself quietly. Stupid kid. It's good to have faith in your team, but it was foolish for them to enter such inexperienced rookie teams into the exams. It could have led to their deaths. Guy whispered to Kakashi, who was present to watch with special permission from the Hokage on account of his involvement with Team 7. Kakashi shrugged. Who knows? I entered the Chunin exams as a rookie too. I turned out alright. But you were a special case. A once-in-a-lifetime genius. Do you think that all these kids are like you? Guy asked in disbelief. Kakashi shrugged. We'll find out soon enough. He looked nonchalant to everyone, including Guy, who was fuming at his coolness, but deep down inside he was worried for his sensei's daughter and his former subordinate's brother. Hate looked at the clock on the wall, watching the time wind down. Alright. It looks like that's going to be everyone that will make it. Let's have all the genin come down to the arena, Hate announced when there was less than 1 minute left. Wait. There's still a bit of time left, Kurenai argued. Hate shrugged. We can wait if you feel like all 3 remaining teams are somehow going to come through those doors in the next 30 seconds, if that'll make you feel better. Kurenai glared at him for his response, which she took to be snarky, but everyone decided to just wait the last few seconds out. Naruto anxiously watched the clock wind down. 10, 9, 8, *slam*. The silence of the waiting shinobi was broken when the door was slammed open. Are we too late? Did we make it in time? Narumi asked out loud as she entered the room with the other rookies. It looks like you were right after all, Kurenai-san. I apologize. Hate told Kurenai before turning to the rookie genin that walked in. Yes, you guys are here on time. The 3 Jonin sensei felt like a huge weight was lifted off of their shoulders when they saw their teams and rushed over to check on them. However, Naruto's happiness in seeing his team evaporated when he saw the ragged state they were in, with Narumi and one clone carrying Sasuke and Hinata on their backs. Narumi! Sasuke! Hinata! What happened to you guys? Sensei! Sasuke and Hinata groaned out in pain. Narumi put them down, and they wobbled to stay on their feet. Nichan! Narumi shouted as she jumped into her brother's arms and began to sob. It was so terrible! The other teams below noted the ragged state of Team 7, with Narumi crying in Naruto's arms and the other 2 barely staying on their feet. It appeared that they would be easy pickings, which brought a smile on most of their competitors, save for a few. Narumi, calm down and tell me what happened, Naruto told his sister, trying to assess what happened as he looked over his team. Narumi nodded and took a few breaths. There was this crazy girl from Kusa who was so strong. She beat all three of us by H herself. Naruto raised an eyebrow. How is that even possible? A single genin? It would take a high-level chunin, or maybe even a jonin-level shinobi to beat all three of them at the same time with their teamwork. However, he kept his thoughts to himself and nodded for her to continue. Narumi continued to speak. She was like a slithery whirlwind. And she moved so creepily too. It was like she had no bones. It was so hard for us to guess what she was going to do, because she moved like some sort of freak. I couldn't even predict her movements with my Sharingan. I thought she moved a bit like Enko-sensei, but she was on a whole other level. At times she felt more like a snake than a human, and she sure bit like one. Sasuke added as he unconsciously rubbed the area of the bite. Naruto noticed the strange seal on his neck, and immediately saw the connection it had to Anko's own. He was interrupted mid-speech when Hate clapped to get their attention. All right, everyone. Those of you who have just entered can come down to the arena now. I have things to announce, and I don't like to yell. But we just got here. Can't we get a moment to catch our breaths? Sakura asked. Unfortunately, you may not. If you wanted time to rest and recover, you should have come sooner. That is the privilege they get for completing the test early, and that is the penalty you get for coming in at the last second. Now come down here before I disqualify all of you. Hate replied. The rookie genin grumbled as they headed down, complaining about things being unfair. Naruto stopped his team briefly to make sure they were capable of continuing. Are you all okay? Will you be able to continue? Naruto asked. They all nodded their heads. All right. Let me know if anything feels wrong. I can see that somebody, probably Narumi, took some sort of measures to restrict those seals on your necks, but I'm gonna keep an eye out on you guys. We'll need to talk about this further later. Naruto told his team before they joined the other genin in the arena. Hate coughed lightly into his fist before speaking. First of all, congratulations on completing the second stage of the Chunin exams. I know it wasn't an easy task. However, more of you made it out than we expected. The genin looked at each other in confusion, not understanding what he meant. Less than half of the genin who entered had made it through. Too many of them made it through? What was he talking about? Why don't I explain? Hiruzen suggested, as he stepped forward. Hate nodded and yielded the floor. Before we move on, I believe I should explain the true meaning of the Chunin exams to you. Hiruzen began. Isn't it to select the next batch of promising Chunin? Kankuro asked. Hiruzen nodded but continued to speak. While that is true, there is more to it. You see, the Chunin exams is also a replacement for war amongst allied villages. War? Many of the genins questioned. The nature of shinobi villages means that there are bound to be disagreements. These exams are one way to get rid of bad blood between villages without going to war, with competition between genin replacing the battles. However, there is also another aspect of the exams that simulates war. The spoils of war? Shikamaru guessed out loud, and Hiruzen nodded in confirmation. Absolutely correct. You see, every time there is a war, the hierarchy between the villages goes through a shift. Whoever wins the war wins prestige and power. What do you mean? Narumi asked in confusion. A village that is able to showcase genin with impressive talent or skill, or even win the whole Chunin exams, will be able to show the world what they have to offer, creating more demand, or more jobs and missions for their own shinobi. Hiruzen explained. So we're like some sort of advertisement? Narumi questioned. Hiruzen nodded. That is certainly one aspect of the exams. The genin are the future of any village, and as representatives of your respective villages, how you perform will be seen as indicators of the future of your villages. The genin let that sink in, now realizing that the Chunin exams were much bigger than a simple test for advancement. The Hokage saw that his message had the intended effect and stepped back to let the proctor take over in further explanation. The next round and last stage of the Chunin exams is the tournament. As you are now aware, there will be spectators that will come from all over, a diverse group ranging from nearby villagers to daimyo of different nations who will come to see the fights for entertainment, but also to see what each village has to offer. As such, we can't drag it out with too many battles. Hate explained. So, you'll narrow down our numbers before we get to that stage? Shikamaru asked in a way that sounded more like a declaration. Hate nodded. Exactly. We'll be having a preliminary tournament right here to select the best of the best to be represented in the tournament. The genin's eyes widened as they looked around to see their competition, wondering who they'd be matched up against as they sized everyone up. Meanwhile, Naruto was deep in thought, extremely disturbed by what he heard from his team, and what implications it might have. One genin taking all three of them out? That's not likely. Not at all. It looks like they've been absolutely dismantled, but none of them died. That requires a much higher degree of skill than to just outright kill them. But what are they trying to achieve? He looked at the genin in the arena below and didn't notice anyone who fit the description his genin gave him. Someone so strong didn't even make it to this stage. Now if that's not suspicious, I don't know what is. His mind then turned to the marks he saw on Sasuke and Hinata's necks. There's no doubt those seals are the same kind of curse seals that Enko has on her neck, a slightly different version, but the same hallmarks are there. This can only mean one thing: trouble was brewing, and his students were somehow involved. He had to figure out what was going on, and quickly too. What are you planning, you slithery bastard? Meanwhile, Hade reached into a basket held by the Chunin who had gotten on the bad sides of the three Jonin sensei of the rookie teams. We'll be picking out 2 random names from this basket to pick out the matchups, Hade announced. After mixing up the folded papers with the names inside for a while, he pulled up 2 names. The first match will be Gaara of Suna and Yakushi Kabuto of Konoha. Silence fell over the room as all eyes fell on the 2 genin. The other genin began to go up to the viewing deck that ringed the arena, leaving the 2 genin alone with Hade. Kabuto vs. Gaara. Alright, before we begin the matches, let me introduce myself and explain the rules. Hade began. The genin above on the viewing deck craned their necks closer to hear what he was saying. I am Gecko Hade, the proctor for the preliminary matches. And here's the first and most important rule you should remember: always listen to the proctor. If I say stop, it means stop. Failure to comply will result in disqualification. Other than that, there are no rules for the fight itself. You may use any tools or jutsu at your disposal to defeat the opponent. Gaara gave a small smirk. And death is permitted? All the genin felt a small shiver crawling up their spines at his ominous question. Hade nodded. Killing your opponent isn't grounds for disqualification. However, if the proctor judges the fight to be over and you continue to attack and kill the opponent, you will be disqualified. Sakura and Ino gulped in fear as they looked at the small redhead from Suna. What kind of psychopaths were in this competition anyway? The fight will end when the proctor decides one side has won, if one of the contestants dies or is incapacitated, or if someone forfeits, which they may do at any point. Can they forfeit now? Kabuto asked. Hade nodded. Certainly. In that case, I choose to forfeit, Kabuto announced. Gasps broke out from all over the room. Everyone was shocked that Kabuto forfeited. How could you get this far and give up without even trying? Hey, are you sure you don't want to at least try before giving up, Kabuto-san? Sakura asked. Kabuto shook his head. I'm already in bad condition from the second stage, and I'm not so keen to be in a fight to the death with some bloodthirsty kid. I'll pass and try again in the future when I'm in better shape. With the forfeit from Yakushi Kabuto, the winner of this match is automatically Gaara of Suna, Hade announced. We'll move on to the next fight immediately. Gaara gave a furious glare to the back of Kabuto's head as he retreated before he reluctantly went up to the viewing deck himself. He had been so excited to shed some blood and that fool decided to forfeit? How dare he deny him of his blood? Murmurs broke out all over the room, the atmosphere of the room only becoming more uncomfortable with the disappointing start of the preliminaries. Many eyes were on Kabuto, giving him a look of disappointment and confusion, but nobody gave much thought to Shikamaru's lazy glance at Kabuto. To most people, it appeared like Shikamaru was disinterested as always, but in his own head, he was coming up with all kinds of scenarios to explain what had just happened. He didn't buy Kabuto's excuse in the slightest. He couldn't quite come up with an acceptable theory yet, but he couldn't help but be extremely suspicious of this mysterious genin who had now failed the exam for the 8th time. The suspicion he had of Kabuto from the beginning of the exams continued to grow. Alright. Next up is Temari of Suna and Yamanaka Ino. Hade called out next. Temari vs. Ino. Ino nervously sauntered down to the arena, where Temari was awaiting her with a confident smirk. Ino tried to hide her nervousness and fake some confidence, but this older kunoichi was exuding a confident and dangerous aura that was clearly stemming from experience. She had remembered reading on Kabuto's profile cards that she was on the same team as Gaara and was probably someone to watch out for. Heh, scared yet, blondie? Temari taunted. Hey! You're a blondie too, stupid! Ino shouted back. Temari smirked. We may both be blondes, but I'll show you that one of us is a real kunoichi, while the other is a little girl who's more interested in fashion than actually being competent. Ino was furious at her accusations. She had been training hard with Asuma for months and weeks, trying to overcome her own shortcomings, but this girl had the audacity to just disregard all that and assume she was more interested in fashion. Her nervousness was now replaced by anger. She wanted to show this girl just exactly what she was made of. Just because I'm prettier than you doesn't mean I'm only interested in fashion, you dusty fangirl. I'll show you what I'm capable of so you can shove it up yours, she shouted furiously. Hate saw that the two girls were already at each other's throats, so he decided to start the fight. As soon as he began the fight, Ino pulled out two kunai and sprinted for Temari. She's definitely a long-distance fighter if her weapon says anything about her fighting style. Ino thought to herself as she held the kunai in reverse grip, like Asuma often did with his trench knives. Then I'm going to go swarm her up close. Here's my chance to try out some of the things Sensei taught me about closer range fighting. And maybe I could trick her into thinking I'm a close-range fighter so when I set up my Shintenshin no Jutsu, mind-body switch technique, she'll be caught off guard. Temari pulled the fan from her back but had no time to deploy it against Ino before she fell upon her. I can tell you're a long-distance fighter based on your fan, but I'm not gonna give you a chance to open that up, Ino declared as she swung at Temari with a ferocity and tenacity that surprised a lot of the people watching. Man, when did Ino get so aggressive? Narumi wondered out loud, mirroring Sakura's thoughts as well. Temari dodged a couple of the strikes before she blocked the next one with her fan. I don't even need to open my fan up to deal with the likes of you. She then surprised Ino when she counterattacked, using the fan like a staff to redirect one of her strikes, then to rapidly use the other end to jab Ino in the stomach. Ino jumped backwards to catch her breath after having it knocked out of her by Temari's attack. Your pitiful attacks won't work on me. If you think all I can do is fight at a distance, you're dead wrong, Temari told Ino. However, I still do prefer it. Why don't I show you why? Ino knew she couldn't afford to let Temari get to her comfortable range, so she tried to run back at Temari. However, Temari had already opened up her fan a third of the way. Temari swung her fan at the oncoming Ino, and a powerful gust of wind blew Ino away, slamming her into the wall with such force that her vision became blurry. What the heck? Was that a jutsu? How did she make such a strong gust of wind? Narumi asked out loud. How did she do that, sensei? Sakura asked Kurenai. It was like a jutsu, but she didn't use any hand signs. She is using a Tezsen, or iron fan, as a ninja tool to channel her wind chakra. Suna is famous for wind jutsu users, but she's able to use her fan to use wind jutsu without hand signs, which can allow her to attack significantly faster. Kurenai explained. And in a world where the few seconds you need to make hand seals can mean the difference between life or death, ninja tools like that could be a game changer, Asuma added as he frowned watching Ino pick herself back up and stumble back to her feet. Ino swayed back and forth, trying her hardest to reorient her balance, but she was struggling to even stay on her feet. She was pretty sure she had at least a minor concussion. Still, she couldn't give up so easily. She wanted to make her sensei proud. And looking bad in front of Sasuke was another thing she wanted to avoid. Screw it, I guess I'll risk it and try now, rather than being eliminated without even trying. Ino thought to herself as she gathered her hands in the hand seal for her clan's famous jutsu. Temari didn't know what Ino was doing with her hands and wondered if Ino was just trying to keep her balance. It sure didn't look like any hand seal she had seen before. Still, she wasn't that interested in finding out and didn't want to drag this fight out longer for some random genin anyway. I'm done wasting time with you. Begone, brat. Temari swung her fan again, and Ino was sent flying into the wall again. The Konoha genin watching winced when they saw Ino crunch against the wall before she slumped over and fell on her face. The winner of match 2 by knockout is Temari of Suna, Hate announced. The medics immediately came after his announcement and took her away to the infirmary. Asuma sighed as he pulled out a cigarette. Damn it. Why did she have to match up against that girl out of all people? Narumi glared at Temari, who smirked at Ino's angry friends before she walked back up to join her siblings. She'd get revenge for her friend if she ever faced her, Narumi vowed. The next match is Uchiha Sasuke and Kimuta Dosu, Hate announced. Sasuke versus Dosu. All eyes fell on Sasuke, one of the last, and the youngest of the Uchiha shinobi left in Konoha. They were interested to see what he was capable of. Dosu was unable to stop himself from smiling, even though his bandages hid it from everyone. What luck! Now I have the perfect opportunity to complete my mission. He was thrilled to have the perfect excuse to kill him without any repercussion. He'd make up for his past failure now. Sasuke eyed Dosu, who he spotted staring at him. He had heard from his friends that Dosu and his team had tried to kill him while he was unconscious. He was determined to pay back the favor and teach him a lesson and also show the whole world what Uchiha Sasuke was capable of. Naruto watched Sasuke with concern as he wobbled down to the arena on unsteady legs. Not only was Sasuke in terrible condition right now, but Naruto was also worried about the curse seal he saw on his neck, and how it would affect him during the fight. Hate looked at the two fighters to make sure they were ready. He looked over at Sasuke, who looked like he was about to collapse already. "You sure you want to continue?" Hate asked. Sasuke nodded, his eyes showing a fierce determination which contrasted greatly from his condition. Hate noticed and decided to let him continue. "Well, if that's the case, let the match begin." As soon as Hate jumped away, Dosu threw several kunai towards Sasuke's direction to test out Sasuke's condition and reflexes. Even though he felt like he would collapse any second, Sasuke quickly moved, driven almost purely by willpower, and threw his own salvo of kunai, which knocked Dosu's out of their intended trajectory. Dosu looked at Sasuke, who was panting from the spurt of energy he used to deflect Dosu's kunai. "Impressive. You were able to not only perceive and track the movement of all my kunai, but also knock them all out of the air. I can see you possess quite the level of skill." Sasuke didn't reply, breathing hard as he prepared himself for whatever attack Dosu had planned next. "However, I can also see that you're exhausted. You're nowhere near your usual condition. Which is both a terrifying thought, and a welcome one. Still, I'd say that's an advantage I'll thoroughly enjoy." Sasuke gritted his teeth, knowing that Dosu was right. It felt like he would collapse and go unconscious immediately if he only closed his eyes for a few seconds. The wound he had gotten on his arm from the Kusa Kunoichi was throbbing and hindered him further, but he showed no signs of pain in an effort to not give away even more weaknesses to his enemy. Dosu charged at Sasuke and began a battle of taijutsu. Despite his appearance, where his hunched back and arms dangling in front of him with long sleeves suggested sluggish movement, Dosu surprised everyone with his proficiency in close-range combat. Sasuke impressed Dosu by still being able to mostly keep up with him in his weakened state, but the effects of his injuries and fatigue were still undeniable. Sasuke ate several punches on his face and stomach before a front kick on his chest from Dosu sent him falling on his back. Sakura nervously watched Sasuke fight Dosu, as the older boy seemed to dominate him. She had never seen Sasuke not have the upper hand in a fight before, and even though she had found him injured, which implied a loss, it was still shocking to see him losing in a fight in person. Narumi gripped the railing of the viewing deck as she watched the fight with anxiety. She had heard the boy had tried to kill them before, and she felt like Dosu wasn't done trying. Dosu smirked under his bandages as Sasuke got up from the ground with great effort. "I think I got a good enough feel of what you're capable of now. Why don't I stop wasting our time and finish this now?" Sasuke glared at Dosu as he breathed out labored breaths. He was so frustrated with how the fight was going, and how unresponsive his body was being. He had gauged Dosu's ability the same way Dosu had gauged his, and he knew that he could beat Dosu if he was in good condition. However, that wasn't the current circumstance, and that was what mattered right now. He needed something extra to give him a chance of winning this fight, so he decided to try to activate his Sharingan. His onyx eyes flashed red and 3 tomo began to circle around his pupils for a brief second, before searing pain from his neck forced him to deactivate it instantly and fall to his knees. Dosu took advantage of this moment and ran at Sasuke. A punch flew towards Sasuke, and Sasuke tried to dodge by tilting his body to his left. However, as soon as he had dodged Dosu's punch, he remembered what had happened to Kabuto at the start of the exams, and he felt extreme nausea and dizziness in the same way, taking damage to his inner ear from Dosu's soundwave attack. He collapsed onto his hands and knees and threw up. Dosu didn't waste a moment, turning right around and delivering a devastating kick to Sasuke's exposed ribs. Sasuke flew into the wall and grunted in pain as he clutched his side. He was sure he had at least one broken rib. "Shit! That hurts so fucking much," he swore in his mind. "I definitely broke a rib or two there. It hurts to just move." Sasuke was absolutely furious that he was being humiliated in this way. If I was healthy, I would have killed him in a couple minutes. As he struggled to his feet, he fell to one knee, as his balance was completely shot from the damage he took to his eardrum from Dosa's soundwave attack. He watched Dosa come at him for a follow-through attack, and his mind couldn't help but go back to the dream he had while he was unconscious. Flashback. Sasuke looked around him and saw nothing but darkness around him. No, that wasn't a good description. It wasn't like he couldn't see anything around him like when it was night. It was more like there was an abundance of a dark color. It wasn't quite black and it wasn't quite navy though. It was more like just emptiness. What is going on here? How did I get here? Last thing I remember is fighting that Kunoichi. He was broken out of his thoughts when he was surprised by a voice that seemed to come from all directions around him. Kukuku, welcome Sasuke-kun. Sasuke looked around in panic, trying to find the source of the voice, putting his guard up immediately. He reached for a kunai but found none, but also found that none of his injuries were there either. My, no need to be so aggressive. I'm just here to talk. The voice spoke out. Who are you? Where is this? What do you want from me? Sasuke shouted out. Kukuku. I suppose the closest thing I can describe this place as would be your mind. The voice replied. What was he talking about? Why was his mind so empty? This could maybe be Narumi's mind, but this definitely did not look like what he imagined his mind would look like. My mind? Sasuke asked. Something close to that. And as for who I am? Sasuke felt a presence, so he quickly turned to face the presence. He saw a pale white man with long black hair slowly appearing from a short distance away. Sasuke was a little unsettled by the man's appearance. Sasuke himself was on the pale side, but this man was almost pure white, as if he had no blood running through his veins, and his yellow, snake-like eyes seemed unnatural as well. But the thing that scared him the most was his uncanny resemblance to the Kunoichi he had been fighting, before a bite from her knocked him unconscious. Who are you? Sasuke asked, his voice breaking despite his best efforts to appear brave. Kukuku, who I am isn't important. What's important is what I can offer. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. And what are you offering me? His question made the snake-like man smile, but the uncanny smile made him feel more nervous rather than make him feel at ease. Power. Power? Sasuke asked. That was completely out of nowhere. What? I know you seek power. Power to be strong enough to protect what is dearest to you. Power to kill those who robbed you of what was precious to you. Power to get revenge. I can give you that power. The shouttiness of the man and the sudden, unsolicited offer of power were immediate red flags for Sasuke. This offer felt about as desirable and enticing as an offer from a stranger offering candy to children under a bridge. Yeah, no thank you. I already have a sensei for that, and I'll get there on my own. Sasuke replied. Kukuku, so you think your sensei is already doing a good enough job, eh? Then why were you so easily defeated? This is the level of power you wanted? You think this is enough to kill Itachi? Sasuke was now completely suspicious about the man's intent and identity. How did he know of his former, and maybe slightly present, desire to kill his brother, and what did he know of Itachi? What do you know of Itachi? What do you want from me? Sasuke asked angrily in a low voice. I know enough. Enough to know that you'll never be on his level at this rate. He was already a Jonin-level shinobi at your age. Sasuke bristled at the strange man's response. That was a sore spot for Sasuke, who always wanted to escape his brother's shadow. Well, it doesn't matter how fast you get there. It only matters how ready you are when you're there. Sasuke told the man, quoting words from his sensei. I'll surpass my brother in my own way. Kukuku, what foolishness. Do you think if you get strong quickly you won't be ready? You can get more ready if you can do it quickly. The more you waste time, the bigger the gap grows between you and your brother. Do you think he's waiting around for you to catch up? It's clear your team is holding you back, and your sensei is distracting you from your goals with his misguided ideals. You'll never get your revenge this way. Accept my help and the power I offer you, and I'll help you become more powerful than you can imagine. There's more to my life than just revenge. Sasuke shouted back. The team and sensei you say are holding me back are more important than any stupid plans of revenge. I'm not going to let down my friends, family, and clan by falling into that darkness. The man chuckled as he began to fade away. Have it your way then. We'll see how long you think that way. Just remember that there's power beyond your imagination available to you. Reach out and take it. Experience it and tell me you don't like it. Tell me you don't want more of it. I'll be back again to see what you think." Sasuke stood standing where he stood as he watched the man vanish as suddenly as he appeared. He didn't know what the heck the man was on about, but he knew he wanted to have nothing to do with him. Flashback, and Sasuke remembered the snake-like man's words about a power available to him. He started to wonder if the man had a point. Maybe he could use some extra power and still stick to his own ideals? There wasn't much time to think about it though, as Dosa was upon him now. "Looking a little lost there, Uchiha brat. Keep spacing out if you want to make my job easier," Dosa yelled out as he brought down a kunai on Sasuke. Sasuke didn't have time to dodge, so he tried to grab Dosa's hand to stop his attack. Though he was able to successfully grab Dosa's arm holding the kunai, his tired state meant he wasn't strong enough to keep it away from him when Dosa used his other arm to help his caught arm plunge the kunai into Sasuke's upper chest. The rookie teams on the viewing deck gasped in unison when they saw the kunai pierce Sasuke between his chest and collar. Naruto clenched his fist nervously. Sasuke used both arms to prevent the kunai from penetrating all the way, knowing that would kill him. Though the pain was immense, he used all of his strength to keep the kunai only a couple centimeters deep. "Shit! If I don't come up with something now, it's all over," Sasuke thought in despair, when a voice began to whisper in his mind, "Use the power I gave you. Let your emotions guide you. Kill your enemies. Show them the true power of rage and hatred." Sasuke wasn't sure what that was all about, but he decided to listen to the voice for now, as he didn't have many other options. He began to channel his rage and hatred and started to feel a burning sensation from the mark on his neck. However, rather than incapacitating him, that burning sensation seemed to fill him with power as it spread throughout his body. Soon, he couldn't even feel the pain or fatigue that had been plaguing him through this entire fight. He felt a strange chakra flowing through him. Though it felt weird and a little off, it also made him feel powerful and reinvigorated. He immediately looked up to meet Dosa's eyes and activated his Sharingan. Dosu was thrown off by Sasuke's sudden burst of strength, and by the strange black marks that began to cover half of his face, before the sight of the Sharingan drowned out everything else. He immediately let go of Sasuke and stumbled back, stunned by the Sharingan which seemed to stare into his soul. Sasuke stood up and plucked the kunai out of his chest, not taking his eyes off of Dosu. The crowd watched in surprise as Dosu suddenly backed off from a fight he was winning and looked dazed. Sasuke used this opening to open his kunai pouch and threw a barrage of kunai at Dosu. Dosu snapped back to attention just in time to deflect the projectiles to his left and right with his melody arm and a kunai he drew with his other hand. The kunai were just a distraction though, as Sasuke used an incredible burst of speed that no one had seen from him before to close the gap between him and Dosu, and engage Dosu in taijutsu, mirroring the opening of the fight, except he was the aggressor this time. Dosu was hard-pressed, slowly being pushed back without being able to complete a single strike against Sasuke, who used the intercepting fist style of the Uchiha and his fully matured Sharingan to deadly effect to stop all of Dosu's attacks in their tracks. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he watched Sasuke. It seemed like the curse mark was powering him and blocking out the pain, enabling him to fight at a higher capacity than usual. However, he knew that the man who gave the curse mark wasn't known to give out free gifts, and knew there would be something more behind it. He kept his thoughts to himself but kept a close eye on Sasuke and prepared himself to move in case anything happened. What the fuck is going on? That looks like the effects of the cursed seals that Orochimaru-sama gives to his trusted shinobi. Why does this Uchiha bastard have one? Dosa thought as Sasuke continued to humiliate him by completely dominating him. Sasuke smirked seeing the fear in Dosa's eyes, before he decided to use some moves he copied from watching Hinata's fight against the Kusa Kunoichi. He feinted with a punch before he used his Sharingan to cast a Genjutsu. Dosu froze for a second once again when the image of two massive Sharingan that hung over him like two moons seemed to burn into his mind as it peered into his soul again. Sasuke smirked as he extended the first joints of his index and middle fingers from his fist to rapidly jab Dosu in several pressure points and nerve clusters on one of his thighs. Dosa's leg went limp immediately, and Dosa collapsed onto one knee. Sasuke quickly backflipped backwards to gain some space behind him, weaving hand seals as he did so. "I'll teach you a lesson for trying to kill me when I was unconscious. Katon, Gakkaku no Jutsu. Fire release, Grand Fireball Technique." Sasuke landed on his feet and puffed up his chest before breathing out a massive fireball that was larger than any he had ever created before. Dosa's eyes widened as he tried to evade, but his numb leg and the enormous fireball which spanned at least 10 meters meant he was powerless to do anything to avoid the massive ball of fire that threatened to roast him alive. Dosu understood at this moment what had happened. He had been betrayed by his own master. "Damn you, Orikima Dash!" His screams were drowned out by the fire, as the massive fireball burned up all the oxygen in his lungs when it exploded on him. Many of the genin turned their heads around to shield their faces from the inferno, while the jonin looked on in shock at the sheer power of the jutsu from a genin. Hade waited for the fire and smoke to dissipate before he announced anything, but he was already sure the fight was done. The question he was wondering was if the sound genin was merely severely burned with permanent injuries, or if he was dead. He wasn't quite sure of which of the two options was correct when the smoke had dissipated, and he finally saw the boy. The rookie genin of Konoha gagged when they saw how the sound genin had all of his clothes burned off and had received such severe burns that his skin resembled tree bark, with subdermal fat and even bone being exposed in some parts. His lips and eyelids had shriveled up and pulled tight around his mouth and eyes, keeping his teeth and eyeballs exposed, which made him look like he had been flayed. There was silence for a couple seconds before it was broken by Hayate's soft coughing. "The winner of this match is Uchiha Sasuke by knockout." Sasuke smirked as he stood over his immolated opponent. The way he had dominated him and absolutely destroyed him felt good. It was empowering. The thrill and rush of being filled with overwhelming power as he tore his opponent apart was simply amazing. He loved the feeling of it and couldn't wait to feel it again. Naruto watched the smallest bit of an unhinged smile form on Sasuke's face before he called out to him. "Good fight, now come over here and get some rest." Sasuke turned his head to see the voice and saw his sensei looking grim. Was that all he had to say? Wasn't he going to acknowledge his power? Wasn't he going to praise him more? He was starting to get angry. Why wasn't he looking happier that his student won? Did he want him to lose or something? Then the Snake Man's words began to ring in his ear. Maybe his sensei was actually trying to hold him back after all. Maybe he just. Sasuke shook his head. What the hell was that? Why was he starting to think these crazy thoughts? It must be from the adrenaline from the fight and the fatigue. I need to get some rest like Naruto-sensei said. Sasuke thought to himself as he let the curse mark recede before he turned to walk up to the deck. However, as soon as the curse mark receded, Sasuke felt an immense pain and fatigue rushing over him. He wasn't even able to scream as his eyes rolled back and he collapsed. The last thing he registered before he went unconscious was his sensei catching him before he hit the ground. Chapter 49, The Preliminaries Part 2. Narumi looked at Sasuke with concern as he was carried away into the infirmary by Naruto. Do you think he's okay? Narumi asked Hinata, who looked unsure herself. I don't know. Hinata quietly replied. She had seen a lot of herself in Sasuke's fight, with her being just as drained and injured as he was, and she suspected the sudden burst of energy and chakra she observed from Sasuke was related to the vision or dream she had while she was unconscious. Hinata's response didn't really instill Narumi with confidence, and she decided to go check up on her friend. Let's go check if he's okay, Narumi told Hinata before she threw her onto her back and snuck away, following Naruto as quickly as she could. Hinata was just as concerned and wanted to see how Sasuke was, but there was one question lingering in her mind. And Narumi-chan? What are we going to do if they call us next? Narumi halted for a second before continuing on. I mean, what are the chances they call us next? We'll just be checking in on him for a second. Hinata considered Narumi's point but still wasn't completely sold. Still, she went along, mostly because she was too tired to protest, and also, she was being carried. The next match is Uzumaki Narumi and Abumi Saku. Hayate's voice rang out. Narumi skidded to a halt. Dang it. She totally jinxed herself with that one. Ugh. Me and my big mouth. Narumi complained. She let Hinata get off of her back. Check on Sasuke-chan for me, okay? I'll be back as soon as possible. Hinata nodded at Narumi, who didn't even stay to see Hinata's response before she sprinted off towards the arena. Hinata grunted slightly in pain before she turned around and limped towards the room Sasuke was at, using the wall to support herself. Narumi versus Sakuhai was considering disqualifying Narumi for not coming to the arena, when she sprinted onto the scene. I'm here! I'm here! Hate looked over at Narumi and sighed. She was nothing like her brother when it came to keeping time, it seemed. Alright. Come stand here in front of Zaku-san here so we can get the fight started. Zaku glared at Narumi as he pounded a fist into his palm. He was furious that Dosu had lost to Sasuke, and he was determined to make short work of this no-name loser to get revenge for the wounded pride of Odogekure. Narumi took her place at the center of the arena as she caught her breath and got ready. Kiba watched the two get ready to fight but couldn't help but feel like he had been cheated. He was totally being robbed of his opportunity to finish the fight that had started in the forest. A few more minutes and he could have finished him off. He didn't want to admit it, but part of him wanted Narumi to lose so he could have another shot at Zaku. Hope you've enjoyed your life so far. Because it'll never be the same again after today. You're unlucky to face me as an opponent, Zaku threatened. Narumi met Zaku's glare with one of her own. I heard what you tried to do in the forest. It's not gonna be so easy to beat me when I'm not unconscious. Zaku growled at her accusation, which he took to mean that he could only beat her when she was unconscious. He wasn't going to play around and make the same mistake that Dosu did with that Uchiha brat. He was just going to go all out from the very beginning before she pulled some random power-up out of her ass. Well, we'll see about that then, stupid tomato-looking brat. Shikamaru smirked as he watched the two. Heh. He just made a huge mistake. But I guess he'll have to learn the same way you did, Akiba? Kiba growled at Shikamaru's teasing, but he knew that was true. He had stayed away from all tomato products for weeks after his altercation with Narumi. Zaku didn't notice the minute change in facial expressions in Narumi, which would have warned him that he had made a huge mistake in calling her that, and spared him some pain. It looked like he would have to learn the hard way. Alright, if both contestants are ready, the fight will now begin, Hate announced as he jumped away from the fight. Zaku wasted no time in pulling his arms up and pointing it at Narumi. Take this, bitch! Zankukyakua! Extreme decapitating airwaves. The top layer of the ground between the two was torn to pieces, with chunks of the floor being ripped off and flying at Narumi's direction. The crowd was shocked as they watched. What kind of jutsu was that? Kurenai wondered out loud. That's the jutsu he used against us in the forest, Sakura mumbled to herself. Seeing the devastating effects once again used on another friend made her worry for Narumi's well-being. Even Temari was slightly taken aback at the sheer power of the jutsu, which didn't even use a Tessen to amplify the wind chakra. How was he doing that? Narumi's friends looked on in concern as they waited for the dust to settle down. Would she be able to survive that? Meanwhile, a hysterical smile formed on Zaku's face. There was no way that bitch survived his strongest attack at point-blank range. People craned their necks to see what had happened when the dust began to settle. At the center of a huge tear that stretched from the middle of the arena to the wall behind Narumi, lay Narumi, who was slumped up against the wall. Zaku smirked as he admired his handiwork. Heh. Guess you were all talk. You know what? It was even easier than when you were unconscious. I'd even say Dog Boy was harder to fight than you. Hate and the rest of the spectators waited to see if Narumi was actually down for the count. It was a pretty devastating attack after all. A few seconds before Hate could declare a win for Zaku, Narumi shook her head as she regained her senses. Whoa! That was a crazy attack. If I didn't put up that barrier just in time, I would have been in a lot of pain. Maybe I should have tried this out back in the forest. A barrier? Kiba wondered out loud from the viewing deck. What? Sakura rolled her eyes at her teammate's ignorance. Didn't you pay attention at the academy? Barrier ninjutsu are jutsu that allow users to erect barriers to protect themselves, trap an opponent, or for other various applications. Well, aren't you quite the smart one? Kakashi commented. That's precisely what it is. How it's written in our textbooks word for word if my memory is correct. Sakura blushed at being praised by one of the strongest ninja in their entire village. However, you didn't bring up the fact that barrier ninjutsu is probably one of the most understudied and underutilized branch of ninjutsu, and that it is quite difficult to learn. So, it is quite surprising to see Narumi be able to not only cast one, but to do it so quickly. I'm assuming there were seals involved. With Kakashi bringing Narumi's feat into perspective, the spectators were surprised at Narumi's capability, and wondered what else she had to show. Zaku was utterly shocked that Narumi had survived his attack, which had been used at maximum power. How the hell? Narumi smirked as she got up and shook the dust off of her. Well, if you're done with your attack, why don't I show you one of mine? She began to weave a chain of hand seals that left most genin confused. Wait, what kind of jutsu is that? It looks more complicated than anything we know, Kiba commented. I'd like to credit myself for that, Kakashi announced as he raised his hands. Watch what happens next. Suiton, Suiden no Jutsu. Water release, water bullet technique. Narumi bellowed out as she prepared to expel water from her mouth. Suiton? Kurenai shouted out in shock. A genin like her already knows how to use elemental jutsu? Here it comes, Zaku thought as he put up his arms to blast the expected torrent of water back. Narumi hunched forwards and began to expel her water in front of her eagerly waiting audience. However, they all face-faulted when they saw a tiny squirt of water exit her mouth, no bigger than when a civilian holds water in their mouths and spits it at someone. So that's what you were responsible for at Kakashi? Impressive, Asuma said sarcastically as he gave him a smirk. That was lame. That's what we were waiting to see, Kiba said accusingly as he gave Kakashi a disappointed glare. Kakashi's mouth hung open under his mask. He had seen her use that technique many times before with great efficiency. What was going on? Zaku smirked when he saw the confused look on Narumi's face. So that was the attack you wanted to show me? Pretty pathetic. It's about what I expected from you, though. You're all talk. I'm done listening to your baseless boasts, so now die. Zaku began using both hands to send smaller alternating blasts of airwaves at Narumi to not give her a moment of respite or the time to use any more barriers. Narumi ran around and dodged the smaller airwaves with her speed and unpredictable footwork, which shocked most of the spectators. Shoot! My chakra control is still terrible. I should have had Naruto and Ai-chan undo that seal on my stomach before the match, she thought to herself as she ran in circles to avoid Zaku's attacks. Oh well. I wanted to win in a cool way, but I guess I'll have to fall back on old reliable. Narumi drew her sword and charged at Zaku. Suigetsu's eyes widened when he saw her sword. No, is that the red whirlpool? Chojuro looked over at Suigetsu and then back at Narumi's sword. I mean, sure, it's a pretty sword with the reddish Damascus pattern, but what's so special about it? It's said to be the only sword forged outside of Kiri to be on par with our 7 legendary swords. I don't know too much about it, but I heard it was best used in the hands of an Uzumaki, Suigetsu replied. The Kiri shinobi all looked at Narumi with greater interest now. Meanwhile, Zaku was getting frustrated with all of his attacks missing this surprisingly quickly moving target, and he couldn't just spam his strongest jutsu as it used up too much chakra. He had already used up a big chunk at the start of the fight. What made it worse was that she somehow made a clone that made him double his work. Just freaking stay still for a second, you rat, so I can finish you off, Zaku shouted out in frustration as he continued to miss his attacks and waste chakra. His frustration also made his aim worse as Narumi weaved between his attacks. Pfft. As if anyone ever stayed still when asked that, Narumi replied. Now here I come. While Zaku split his attention between the Narumis, they zipped towards him and slashed out with their swords in an Aido-style draw/slash. They both passed by him from opposite directions and sheathed their swords with their backs facing Zaku. Zaku didn't know what happened for a moment and thought they had missed. He only realized what had happened when he moved his hands to attack Narumi, and both of his hands fell off of his arms. It took him a moment to process what happened, before he dropped to his knees and began to scream in agony. Narumi's single shadow clone dispelled itself, while Narumi turned around to give him a cold stare. That's what you get for trying to kill me and my friends. The crowd flinched back at the gory scene. Damn. The kid is more merciless than I expected. I expected her to be nicer with the happy-go-lucky attitude we see from her, Asuma mentioned. Yeah, it's not the best idea to get on her bad side. She might not kill you, but she'll take her pound of flesh, Kakashi replied. Temari looked at Narumi approvingly. Now here was a kunoichi that took her craft seriously. It was too bad she'd have to die along with everyone else. It was nothing personal though. Just business. It was clear to Hate and everyone else that there was no more fighting to be done here. The winner by incapacitation, Uzumaki Narumi. Narumi smiled as her victory was announced and snuck back towards the infirmary when the medics came to take Zaku and his severed hands. Sure, she felt a little bad at Zaku's wails of pain, but he honestly deserved it for his actions in the forest, and Tsunade Bachan could always put his hands back on if necessary. Inside Sasuke's room, During Narumi's fight, Naruto was taking a closer look at Sasuke's curse mark as Sasuke laid on his cot unconscious. He turned around with his guard up when he heard the door open suddenly. Is Sasuke-kun okay?" Hinata asked as she limped into the room. Naruto immediately put down his guard and rushed over to Hinata to help her get seated. "It looks like he is stable but is extremely fatigued. They said he'll need to rest to regain chakra and recover. He'll be sleeping for a while." Hinata nodded as she sat down in a chair with her sensei's help. Once she was seated, Naruto turned to look at her with a serious face. "So, can you tell me what happened in the forest?" Hinata gulped a little as she remembered the events that led to her and Sasuke getting bitten. "Well, you see." Hinata nervously explained the happening at the forest in great detail, while Naruto said nothing, merely nodding from time to time to let her know he was listening. "And then the last thing I remembered was her neck stretching like a snake as she came at me, and then I don't remember anything after that." Several disturbing things were clear to Naruto when he heard Hinata's story. One was the fact that the kunoichi, clearly knew who Sasuke and Hinata was by name, and took great interest in observing their skills. She could have easily killed them in seconds, but she went out of her way to prolong the fight. What did she want with them? Another disturbing implication was the fact that she was able to get that kind of information. Sure, they were the heirs of two of the most prominent and prestigious clans in Konoha, but that degree of familiarity pointed to the fact that there may be spies within their village that were not being tracked. This could be catastrophic. Hinata watched Naruto's face nervously as he tuned the world out as he was deep in his thoughts. What was he thinking about? She was about to ask when Naruto suddenly jerked into attention as if he just had a huge realization. "Oh my god!" Hinata was worried now. What's wrong, sensei? What are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be waiting for your fight? What if they called you and you get disqualified? I know it's not my turn yet because it was Narumi's turn," Hinata explained. Naruto nodded as he relaxed. "Oh, good to hear. That's good. Wait, what? Narumi is dash. I'm missing Narumi's fight." Naruto shouted in shock as he got up from his chair and grasped his hair. "We gotta go and dash." Naruto was cut off mid-speech when Narumi slammed the door open. "Is Sasuke okay?" Naruto's mouth dropped when he saw Narumi. "What are you doing here? How about your fight?" "Oh, that? It was no big deal. I beat this one genin from Otogekure. I sliced off his hands. But before you judge me, just know he tried to kill us in the forest." Tears were freely falling from Naruto's eyes, albeit a little comically, as he fell to his knees and crawled over to hug Narumi. "I can't believe I missed your fight. It was your big moment, and I missed it." Narumi, however, didn't see what the big deal was because it was just some preliminary match against a no-name genin from a no-name village. She pushed Naruto away as she tried to get to Sasuke to see how he was. "Alright, Anai-chan, it's no big deal. You can watch my real fight in the actual tournament later, okay? So can you get off of me?" She basically pried him off as she went over to check on Sasuke. "How is he? What did the medics say?" Narumi asked. "The medics said he just needed some rest and regain chakra and he'll be alright," Hinata answered her. "Guys, we can't be wasting time here. We need to get back out there in case it's Hinata's turn next," Naruto pointed out anxiously. He didn't want to miss another one of his students' fights. "Don't worry. I have my clone outside listening for us, and she'll dispel herself if she hears Hinata's fight being announced," Narumi assured. Besides, I don't know if I can fight. I can barely stay on my feet, and I'm afraid I might collapse at any second," Hinata admitted. Hinata's terrible condition was evident to Naruto, and he was worried Hinata might fall prey to the temptations of using the untested and unknown curse seal like Sasuke did. He didn't think it was a good idea for Hinata to be tested that way right now, so he began to brainstorm what could be done. After a couple minutes, Naruto spoke up. "Look, I know this might be considered cheating or unfair, but honestly, you guys having to face someone way above genin level in a chunin exam is unfair too. So what I'm gonna do is give you this." He reached into his pouch and pulled out a round pill. What is that?" Hinata asked curiously as she took the pill from his hand. "That right there is an ANBU soldier pill. Not only will it give you a huge but temporary chakra boost, it also has powerful painkillers to numb your pain, and a huge amount of caffeine to keep you alert and awake." Hinata thanked Naruto as she put the pill in her pocket. This was exactly what she needed. Wow, Nai-chan. That sounds pretty great. But how come you didn't give Sasuke one? Narumi asked. Well, first of all, it didn't cross my mind. Second, it's kind of cheating. Young genin like yourself should not have access to A and BU grade soldier pills. Why not? Narumi argued. Sounds pretty useful to me. Well, they do have their share of negative side effects, and it's not really the best idea to hand them to 12-year-olds, Naruto replied. Hinata was now a little worried. As side effects? Well, basically, it works similar to the concept of the 8 gates. It releases limiters your body naturally has to protect you and forces your body to generate chakra at an accelerated rate. It's highly stressful for your bodies. Also, the huge amount of caffeine basically forces you into a heightened state of energy until it wears off. So, what this means for you is that you'll be able to operate at a higher capacity briefly before you crash and burn. The soldier pill I gave you is the smallest dose, so it'll just put you in a state of mildly severe chakra exhaustion, and therefore render you unconscious for only a few hours to a couple days. Naruto explained nonchalantly. 8 gates? Narumi wondered, not worrying too much about the rest. Being a chakra monster and having more energy than anyone she knew, the other things didn't really hit home for her. What was chakra exhaustion anyway? Was it like being sleepy after a long day at the pool? And what was this 8 gates business? However, Hinata's already pale face lost even more color as she processed what she heard. Basically, she'd be borrowing her health and vitality from the future. If she thought she was in a bad state now, after the fight she'd feel like a corpse. But don't worry too much about that, okay? You'll have plenty of time to recover afterwards. And also, don't tell anyone I gave you that, alright? I don't enjoy getting chewed out by the Hokage, and I definitely don't want to deal with random jonin and counselors complaining about me cheating. What's the deal with that anyway? We're ninja. We're supposed to do anything to achieve our goals, even if it is a little bit underhanded. Naruto's went off on a tangent complaining about other random stuff he was unhappy with, which Hinata and Narumi tuned out as background noise. His words weren't all that comforting for Hinata, but she supposed he had a point in saying that she should be prepared to do anything to win, and she didn't want to resort to reaching for the power that creepy snake man from her vision promised her. Naruto-sensei? Hinata called out, breaking Naruto from his monologue. Don't even get me started on my compensation because, What is it, Hinata? When should I take this pill? Should I take it now or right before the fight? Or do you think I should take it during the fight? Naruto wondered for a second. If she took it in front of everyone, it would be too obvious. Since the pill would last a few hours, it would probably be best if she took it now, and just ride it out. I'd just say take it now. And hopefully the crash will come after you get back home. Hinata felt uneasy about taking such drugs, but she trusted her sensei wholeheartedly, so she took the pill. She didn't feel anything for a minute, but then she felt like fire that started from her stomach began to course throughout her entire body. She started to feel itchy on her skin, so she started scratching her arms and neck, before she felt so energetic that she felt like she needed to get up from her chair. Naruto and Narumi looked at each other before looking back at Hinata, whose eyes began to twitch. You think I should have given her half of that? Naruto asked Narumi. I never really had issues with shortage of chakra, so I haven't really used them. I thought I gave her the smallest dose. Narumi rolled her eyes at Naruto's irresponsible act in giving Hinata an untested soldier pill. Well, it looks like we're about to find out how badly you messed up. It looks like it's Hinata-chan's turn next. Naruto left a clone behind to watch over Sasuke, now that he knew that Sasuke had a target on his back, and followed Narumi and the slightly overenergetic Hinata out to the arena and viewing deck. At the viewing deck, as Hinata took her place at the center of the arena for her fight, Naruto and Narumi took their place at the viewing deck. So, what did I miss, senpai? Naruto asked Kakashi. Other than your sister's fight? You didn't really miss much. Other than the Nara kid's tactical prowess overcoming a much stronger opponent in that older Konoha genin, the rest were pretty one-sided fights. That timid-looking kid from the mist surprised me with his use of one of the legendary swords of the mist. That Kunoichi from the sound stood no chance. The Hyuga boy absolutely destroyed Counselor Haruno's daughter. The last fight was a little more entertaining, but the mini guy over there really did a number of Chuza's son. Guy really did a great job in making a little clone of himself. Kakashi replied. Heh. Lee's youth really shined through in that match, didn't it, Kakashi? Guy said proudly with a blinding smile on his face. Did you say something? Both Naruto and Kakashi said at the same time. Damn you, Kakashi! You've infected Naruto-san with your coolness! Kakashi pretended not to hear anything as he turned his attention back to the arena, while Naruto let out a chuckle. Kakashi had told him to respond like that when Guy went on with his youth talk if he wanted to see something funny, and he had to agree that it was pretty funny. He too turned his attention to Hinata's fight as the fight was about to begin. Hinata versus Kankuro. When Hate commenced the fight, Hinata immediately activated her Byakugan and got in her stance. My, don't you look eager? Surprising amount of energy for someone who was looking half dead earlier, Kankuro mentioned as he took the bandaged-up object off of his back. No need to rush. I'll finish you up quickly anyway. Kakashi observed the scene below before he began to talk to Naruto. You know, he has a point. She is looking a lot more lively. A stark contrast from her condition when she arrived. I guess a little rest goes a long way, senpai? Naruto replied, trying to shut down the discussion before it started. I'm sure it does. Kakashi replied as he gave Naruto a knowing side-eye. Yeah, Naruto could say whatever, and Kakashi wasn't about to call him out in public, but he was no idiot. He had seen those effects many times before, and he could see when a person was using a soldier pill for the first time. Hinata looked at her opponent, quietly observing both him and the bandaged object at his side. Why you might fool others, but I can see right through your tea tricks. Hinata commented, stuttering a little bit more than usual due to her feeling jittery from the soldier pill. Kankuro felt a little uneasy when he heard that, but he didn't let it show. Oh? Is tea that alright? He replied, mocking her stutter to get in her head. Naruto glared at Kankuro for mocking his student, but Narumi was openly furious. Show that punk what you can do, Hinata-chan. Don't be nice. Beat him up until he gets a real stutter. Wow. Ease up with the wishing brain damage on someone, buddy. Kakashi remarked as a joke. Why don't you ease up on your hentai books? Pervert. Narumi replied snappishly as she glared at him. The other Jonin sensei who knew Kakashi chuckled as they nodded in agreement with the feisty girl. Agreed. Read that alone in your room, Kakashi. Kurenai commented. Kakashi waved them off as he focused on the fight again. Sheesh. He really lost all respect from the kid ever since that time in Taki, huh? Meanwhile, Hinata and Kankuro sized each other up before Hinata decided to end Kankuro's little charade. I meant it when I said I could see through your tea tricks, Kankuro-san. You can see come out now. All of the spectators, including the Jonin sensei, were a bit confused when she said that. Come out? Of where? What was she talking about? However, Team Suna seemed slightly unnerved at her comment. It looked like this would be a tough match for Kankuro. Temari whispered to her sensei's ears. Baki-sensei, how did she know his plan? Nobody else caught on, not even the Chunin and Jonin. Baki just gritted his teeth before he quietly muttered back to Temari. Hyuga. Of all the people he had to face, he got the worst matchup possible for him. Niji just smirked as he observed the fight. Did he really think he could pull something like that against a Hyuga? Even if it was a pathetic excuse of a Hyuga? Kankuro was sweating bullets under his outfit. How did she catch on to his trick? Were her weird freaky eyes really somehow able to see through it? The bandages around the object began to slide off as Kankuro emerged from them. TCH. I guess there's no point hiding in here if you already know. Kankuro surprised everyone by emerging from what everyone assumed was simply a ninja tool. What the heck? He carried a clone of himself on his back? Narumi wondered out loud. No. That's the real him. What we thought was him this whole time is actually his puppet. Naruto explained as he pieced the puzzle together quickly. A puppet? Narumi asked. Suna is famous for their puppet brigade. But to think a genin like him was able to hide himself and control a puppet in such a way, he must be a prodigy in puppeteering. Kakashi added. Kankuro jumped back and let his puppet shed the disguise it had and reveal its true self as a three-eyed puppet he called Karasu. Kankuro tried to surprise Hinata by having Karasu launch a volley of poison Simban from hidden openings throughout its body, but Hinata had already seen all of the hidden mechanisms and weapons within the puppet, and easily dodged the projectiles utilizing the training she got from her sensei. What the heck? She moved like she actually knew I had Saban ready to launch. Kankuro wondered out in surprise. Most people didn't know anything about puppets, much less assume that it would be hiding so many weapons underneath. I did say I could see through your tea tricks, Kankuro-san, Hinata replied. Kankuro was shaken. His game plan revolved around trickery and surprise attacks, but this girl could somehow see everything. He'd have to be more aggressive then. Fuck it! If you can already see my surprises, I'll just cut you down straight up. He launched Kurasa towards Hinata with the numerous hidden blades on it now revealed. His sensei, Baki, however, closed his eyes and shook his head. That fool, you don't go against a Hyuga with close combat, he whispered. Temari heard this and looked at the fight with concern. Was there a chance that Kankuro actually didn't make it to the next round? Kurasa began to swing down on Hinata with its forearms, but Hinata easily parried them or dodged them with her flexibility and precise movement. Kankuro tried to catch her off guard with multiple hidden contraptions like the poison dart launcher hidden in the face of the puppet or the blades that were hidden in the torso, but Hinata could see the hidden weapons and kept her guard up for those and was able to easily put herself out of reach or distance. Kankuro was growing frustrated with his unsuccessful attacks and felt like his frustration was leading to him losing control over his puppet. However, what he didn't know was the fact that Hinata was using her Juken to sever the chakra strings he was controlling the puppet with, one at a time. Normally the chakra strings would be invisible to the eyes, but for the Byakugan which could see chakra, it was an easy task to accomplish. With the puppet slowing down significantly, Hinata decided to go on the offensive and quickly targeted the remaining chakra strings. When all of the connections were severed, the puppet fell on the ground in a heap. What? What's going on? Kankuro stuttered out in shock as he completely lost control of his puppet. I can see the chakra S strings that connect from your puppet to your F fingers. It was clear that's how you control them, so I severed them. A smirk grew on Naruto's face as he saw how his student completely outmatched her opponent. She was smart enough to keep her strategy a secret until it was too late for Kankuro to make any adjustments. Kankuro clenched his fists and gritted his teeth in anger as he considered what to do next. It wouldn't be too hard to reattach his puppets, but there was nothing that would prevent her from doing the same thing again, and she was able to somehow see everything it seemed. So, when Hinata began to close the distance to continue the fight, he did what he thought was the best move he could do. Proctor, I forfeit! Many of the spectators were slightly surprised at his quick forfeit, being the only real forfeit after Kabuto's forfeit which happened without a fight, but they could see that he had no chance of winning. That useless fool! Gaara spat out hatefully. However, their sensei wasn't as displeased. Kankuro had other tricks up his sleeves, but he wasn't so caught up in his pride that he would reveal them in a losing battle to try to scratch and claw his way into the next round. He would need those secrets for the next phase of the plan, which didn't require him being in the next round, and it was a tactically sound move. Temari felt confused about how to feel with Gaara clearly being displeased at Kankuro's performance while Baki seemed to be pleased with Kankuro's decision. The winner of the match is Hyuga Hinata! At the viewing deck. Great job, Hinata-chan! Narumi greeted when Hinata came back up to the viewing deck. You totally got in his head without being a total jerk like he was. If it was me, I would have given him a couple extra smacks, but I guess your way worked too. Hinata gave her a smile as she took her place next to her team. She was quite happy with her performance, but she sort of felt like the fight had ended too early. She still had a ton of energy just waiting to be released, and the added adrenaline from the fight made her feel jumpy. So how did it taste? Kakashi asked Hinata. What do you mean, Kakashi-sensei? Hinata asked. You know, the sweet taste of victory. Hinata relaxed a little when he clarified. She thought he was onto her little, unfair, advantage. The way he lost with all of his clever plans. It sure must be a tough pill to swallow. Kakashi continued. Hey. You can interview my student later. The next match is about to start. Naruto told Kakashi in an effort to distract him from grilling his student. Of course. Let's see if there are any more interesting fights to see, or if they'll be boring like so many others. Kakashi replied as he winked at Hinata knowingly. You should pay close attention to this one, Kakashi. I feel like you'll be pleasantly surprised. Kurenai told Kakashi. Oh ho. A student of yours, eh? Kurenai's proud look gave him the answer he was looking for. Shino versus Masumi. Shino quietly took his place at the center of the arena facing off against one of Kabuto's teammates named Masumi. I won't be careless like my teammate just because you're young, you know. I'm going to warn you to give up now, Because once I get my jutsu started on you, you will die, Misumi warned Shino. Shino stayed quiet and didn't respond. If you two are ready, I will now begin the match, Hate announced. As soon as the match commenced, Misumi ran at Shinho. Misumi had the advantage in height, strength, reach, weight, and experience, but Shino held out surprisingly well in their taijutsu match, mostly avoiding or deflecting his attacks. However, the obvious physical advantages couldn't be completely negated. When Misumi felt like he had lulled Shino into thinking he was a striker, he quickly shifted gears and went into grappling mode. He feinted a punch that Shino tried to deflect and used the contact to grab onto the defending arm. Shino wasn't able to shake off the vice grip of a hold that Misumi had, but what really surprised everyone was how Misumi was able to continue from there to snake around and wrap around Shino's limbs and torso in an unconventional way. What the heck is that? Kiba asked in shock. Does he not have any bones or something? Gross. Narumi and Hinata paled slightly at Misumi's jutsu, which was very reminiscent of their opponent in the forest. I'm able to dislocate all of the bones in my body and use chakra to manipulate my body, Misumi explained to Shino unprompted, in an attempt to scare Shino into submission. I'm sure it's apparent that you can't escape. I can also continue to constrict from this position, and if you don't surrender right now, I'll break your neck. Shino continued to keep his silence. Misumi frowned as he took Shino's silence as an answer. TCH. Have it your way then. Don't say I didn't warn you though. This was your choice. He then continued to tighten the squeeze he had around Shino's neck, bending it downwards until it snapped down with a crack. Shino Kyuubi! Narumi yelled in shock as she watched one of her childhood friends have his neck broken. However, before anyone could react further, everyone, Misumi included, was surprised when Shino suddenly disintegrated into a mass of swarming Kikaichu. What the hell? Misumi yelled as the insects began to swarm all over him. Shino dropped a genjutsu he had casted and emerged from behind one of the larger pieces of rubble that had been created in the fight between Narumi and Zaku. Consume. Shino quietly ordered his insects. Misumi quickly began to feel his chakra draining from the mass of insects on him, and tried his best to brush them off of him. However, there were way too many Kikaichi to brush off, and once brushed off, they'd simply fly back on him to eat his chakra. Misumi screamed in terror and panic as his sight was completely overcome with insects, some of them which even began to climb into his mouth and into his nose. It was a claustrophobic nightmare before Misumi slumped over, unconscious and suffering from chakra exhaustion. When Misumi stopped moving and the Kikaichu had their fill of chakra, they flew back into Shino's sleeves. Hate looked at Misumi for a short while to make sure that he didn't get back up to continue fighting before he decided it was over. The winner by knockout, Aburain Shino! Though the fight had been relatively quick, everyone watching had been impressed at the efficiency of Shino's performance. That was pretty impressive. He never put himself in the way of danger. Even before the fight started, he sent an insect clone in his place. Clever, Asuma commented. I'd say he's the dark horse of this tournament. The Aburaim Kikaichu are definitely something to be feared, and the calm tactical mindset of Shibi is definitely evident in his son. Kakashi added at the unexpected, brilliant performance. He's definitely Chunin material. Makes me wonder if he has any interest in joining ANBU. Kurenai smiled at Shino's performance and at the praise her peers gave to her student. She was also proud that he had incorporated genjutsu into his fighting style, affirming her belief that genjutsu would complement his fighting style tremendously. Shino calmly walked up the stairs back to the viewing deck and took his place next to his team again. Kurenai smiled as the remaining genin from Konoha congratulated him, before Hate announced the next fight. The next fight is Yuki Haku and Tenten. Haku vs. Tentengai beamed in pride as the sole kunoichi of his team walked down to meet her opponent. My final student. If she wins this, then my whole team will be in the final round, Guy told Kakashi proudly. The team I helped train already had everyone make it to the finals, Kakashi said nonchalantly, trying to get under Guy's skin. First of all, that's Naruto-san's team. And just watch. Tenten is going to show you how youthful she is. She never misses her mark. I'd say she's almost as good as Itachi when it comes to Shuriken Jutsu. Guy shouted back. Whoa, hold your horses there, buddy. Let's not get ahead of ourselves with these comparisons. Kakashi then ignored whatever Guy said back as he focused on the fight to come. He was more interested in seeing what the last known Yuki was capable of. Narumi cupped her hands around her mouth and was about to cheer on her friend, but Naruto grabbed her shoulder to stop her. He didn't want Narumi cheering on foreign shinobi over her fellow Konoha comrade openly in front of others, even if they were friends. She already wasn't all that well liked, and he didn't want her to be seen as traitorous on top of that. Narumi didn't know exactly what Naruto was thinking, but she got the general message and watched the match quietly. Meanwhile, down at the arena, Haku offered Tenten a hand. "Let's have a good fight, Tenten-san." Tenten looked at the hand in silence for a second before she gave her a big smile and shook it. "Sounds good. Good to see I got a respectable foe instead of some insanely bloodthirsty one, but don't expect me to go easy on you, okay?" Haku gave her a smile back and nodded. "Likewise." Hate saw that the two kunoichi were ready to go and commenced the fight. As soon as the fight started, Tenten jumped back and threw several kunai at Haku. Haku quickly jumped back to safety and hurled her own volley of Saban. She impressed everyone when her Saban went through each of the holes at the end of each kunai and pinned them to the ground. Kakashi whistled, impressed. "Now that was pretty cool." Zabuza, who stood away from everyone else on the deck with his team, smiled with his sharpened teeth as he watched Haku. There was no way some random genin from Konoha stood any chance against his personally trained, war veteran prodigy. He was just excited to see how these people would react to Kiri's strongest genin. "Wow. Not bad. A fellow markswoman, huh?" Tenten called out as she pulled out a scroll. "Let's see how you deal with these then." She unsealed several Fuma shuriken and threw them in quick succession at Haku. Haku mirrored Tenten as she pulled out a scroll and unrolled it. Time for Naruto-sama's gift to make an entrance, she quietly told herself. She slid her thumb across the huge seal on the scroll, and a large quantity of water began to pour out of the seal. With her hand still on the seal to continue summoning water, she began forming one-handed seals with her other hand. Suetun, Suijin Hiki. Water release, water formation wall. The jonin watching stood there impressed as a massive wall of water rose from the water gushing out of the scroll and caught the Fuma shuriken, absolutely absorbing their momentum and sending them falling to the ground harmlessly. "Whoa! One-handed seals? Even I can't do that!" Asuma exclaimed in shock as he watched the fight. What the hell are they feeding kids in Kiri these days? "Hey! That was pretty cool. You use scrolls too. I like you!" Tenten exclaimed in excitement as the fight began to heat up. "Haven't seen anyone use one-handed seals before either. You're pretty strong." Haku wanted to return the compliment and say likewise, but honestly she didn't see anything impressive yet. After a bloody war where she saw masses of shinobi trying their hardest to kill each other, she'd seen plenty of more impressive things. Still, she tried to be respectful and thanked Tenten. "Alright then, it's clear my basic attacks won't work on someone your caliber. Let's see how you deal with this then," Tenten shouted out as she pulled out two giant scrolls. "Ninpo, Sashoryu! Ninja Art, Twin Rising Dragons." Tenten leapt high into the air while her two scrolls rose up with her, spinning around her in a helix pattern. A puff of smoke surrounded the two scrolls in the form of dragons, giving the appearance of two dragons of smoke rising with Tenten. At the apex of her jump, the smoke around the scrolls dissipated, and Tenten proceeded to unseal and throw a huge variety of weapons at Haku. Haku could see that this was an area attack, and dodging would be extremely difficult. She judged that the wall of water she used earlier to block the Fuma shuriken would also be insufficient due to the angle of the attack. As such, she decided to go in a different route. Hayatan Makyo Hyosho! Ice release, demonic ice mirrors. Several large rectangular plates of ice quickly formed from the water on the ground and formed a protective semi-dome in front of her. Most of the people present had never seen an ice user before and were blown away at the sight. "What the heck? People can control ice?" Kiba shouted out in shock. "So that's the power of Hayatan," Kurenai said in awe as she witnessed the power of a Yuki for the first time. "Whoa! What the heck was that?" Tenten said in disbelief as all of her weapons bounced off the ice harmlessly. "I've never seen anything like that before. It's my Hayatan. It's a Kekkei Genkai that allows me to manipulate ice," Haku kindly explained as the wall of ice melted back into water. "I believe I am the last remaining user, however." Tenten realized her ranged attacks would never be able to touch her opponent. She was simply outmatched in that regard. Her eyes fell on a large dao that she had thrown at Haku earlier. If she couldn't beat her at range, she figured she would have a better chance up close. "Well, let's see how good you fight up close then. Hiya! Though Tenten preferred to fight at range, she was still a student of Guy, and was no slouch when it came to close combat, especially with weapons. She liked to call herself a weapons specialist after all. Haku could have easily frozen Tenten into place as she ran over her water, or pepper her with 1,000 saban of ice, but she decided to try her hand at what used to be her weak suit and engage in close combat. She unsealed her nuabari and got into stance. Kakashi's eyes widened. Nuabari? Another one of the 7 legendary swords of Kiri? Are all 3 of those kids members of the 7 swordsmen? Zabuza watched the fight with a smile never leaving his face as he watched his first student take on her opponent with the art style he loved most. Haku knew it would be foolish to try and parry Tenten's much bigger blade. Instead, she took advantage of her immense speed and flexibility to dodge Tenten's cleaving blows, and dart around with her own stabs. Tenten was growing frustrated, as she never thought herself to be a slow fighter, but Haku was somehow able to evade all of her attacks. She also seemed to use some sort of thrusting sword but didn't actually stab her. Was she missing her attacks? What was going on? Haku suddenly jumped back after a brief trading of thrusts and slashes. "It's over now," Haku announced. "Huh? What are you talking about, Dash?" Tenten was yanked off of her feet when Haku pulled on the ninja wire attached to her sword. While Tenten thought Haku was missing her attacks, she had actually been sewing Tenten's pants together. As the legs were stitched together, Tenten was now unable to move. She was struggling to move when Haku stepped on her sword arm. Then the needle tip of Haku's sword was pressed against her neck. "Yield," Haku told Tenten. Tenten laid there for a second, wondering if there was anything she could do, before she sighed. She knew she was defeated, and she knew it could have been a lot worse if Haku had gone all out. She gave her a smile as she came to terms with her defeat. "Fine. You got me. Proctor, I surrender." Haku cut the threads sewing Tenten's pants together, and helped her back on her feet. "Good fight. I can see you are quite talented and have put in a lot of work in your craft. However, I cannot afford to lose here. My village needs me to win," Haku told Tenten, who nodded. Zabuza was happy to hear that Haku understood their team's role. Kiri was in a terrible position, having the smallest shinobi force amongst the 5 villages following their civil war, and they were desperate to regain a good reputation. A good showing to potential clients was a necessity for their survival. Haku went back to her team, who congratulated her. She turned around to look back down towards the arena but met eyes with Narumi on the other side in the process. Next to Narumi she saw Naruto and Hinata, who gave her a smile and a nod of acknowledgement. Haku smiled back, knowing she couldn't be too friendly with them yet, but it felt good to be acknowledged by her friends and someone she looked up to greatly. At the viewing deck, Kakashi watched as they cleaned up the arena and got ready for the next fight. He heard some sniffling from his side, and when he turned around to see what it was, he saw a river of tears streaming from Guy's eyes. "Too bad the fight didn't go the way you wanted it to, Guy?" Guy gripped the safety bar so tight that they began to warp under his immense strength. "Yo, calm down. I know your student lost, but you don't have to be so upset." Guy snapped his head around to look Kakashi in the eyes. "Upset? Who said I was upset?" Sweat began to drip down the back of Kakashi's neck. "Then why are you crying like that?" "Oh. These aren't tears of sadness. These are tears of joy. Did you see the youth my student and her opponent displayed? It was a beautiful battle where both kunoichi showed what they practiced and showed the youthful passion they had, and then they shook hands after they showed each other their hearts. What a youthful battle! Such good sportsmanship. It's getting me fired up." Guy cried out as he pumped his fist in the air. "Me too, Guy-sensei." His genin clone shouted out next to him as a visible fire was lit in his eyes to match his teacher's. "Lee! Guy-sensei!" Kakashi felt shivers crawl up his spine as he turned away from the frightening sight. "This relationship is definitely not normal. I don't know if I should be worried about them, but I also don't want to have anything to do with them, so I guess I'll just mind my own business." Kakashi wanted to shift the attention from the strange pair, so he turned to Team 8. "Now that fight is over, I guess that just leaves us with you and that boy from Kiri, huh?" Kiba punched his palm in excitement as grin formed on his face. "Sure does. I thought my turn would never come around." Kiba was practically ready to jump down before the proctor even called him. He had to be pulled back by his sensei, who had a concerned look on her face. "Listen, Kiba. Don't underestimate your opponent. That whole team from Kiri is dangerous. Just keep in mind that Kiri just came out of a civil war. I wouldn't be surprised if those kids have experienced war. And judging by the patterns so far, I wouldn't be surprised if that kid had some crazy kind of sword either. Asuma added. The next and final fight will be Inuzuka Kiba and Hozuki Suigetsu. Hate announced from below. Heh. Don't worry about me. With Akamaru by my side, we can take down anyone. Kiba gave the Konoha shinobi with him a confident smile as he jumped down. Oh ho, a Hozuki huh? This will be interesting. Kakashi muttered to himself as he got ready to watch the last fight. Kiba versus Suigetsu. The two genin sized each other up as Hate prepared to start the match. Heh, I can smell the rookie on you, boy. I'd say give up now and save yourself the trouble. Suigetsu taunted with a confident smirk. What would you know about the smell of things? You little shark wannabe. Kiba retorted, mocking Suigetsu's sharpened teeth. Suigetsu's smile widened. Hee, glad to see you got some fight in you. It would be boring otherwise. It seems like you're not aware of the significance of my teeth, but I'll be more than happy to show you when the fight begins. If the two of you are ready, I'd like to start this fight. Hate told the two combatants. I'm ready, Proctor. Kiba answered, itching to get started. Likewise. In that case, the fight will now begin. Hayata announced as he jumped back to give the fighters space. As soon as the fight started, Suigetsu drew up his hands in the shape of pistols and fired off 2 quick shots of concentrated water. Kiba and Akamaru's quick reaction saved them, as the bullets of water easily penetrated through the stone floor they were standing on. What was that? And that was without any hand signs? Kiba stuttered out. So, he's capable of using the Nidaime Nizukage jutsu. Impressive, Kakashi commented. The others around him, minus Naruto, were stunned that he was able to use jutsu like that without any hand signs or ninja tools. Suigetsu blew on the tips of his fingers. Hey, how did you like my Mizudepo no jutsu? Water gun technique, it's my clan's specialty, Suigetsu stated. Among many others, he added with a smirk. Kiba now knew he was facing another shinobi from a legitimate clan, which added another element of danger to the battle. He decided he needed to come out strong and show his own clan's specialty. Not bad, but I'll have you know that your clan isn't the only one with secret techniques, Kiba shouted out as he got on all fours. Giju Ninpo, Shikyaku no Jutsu. Imitation Beast Ninja Arts, 4 legs technique, let's see how you deal with this. Kiba yelled as he zigzagged towards Suigetsu to make himself harder to hit. Ho? He's gonna come right up to me? Guess he thought I was a distance fighter, eh? Suigetsu chuckled to himself as he took out a large scroll which he unrolled. The unrolled scroll revealed 2 large seals next to each other. I'll only need one side to deal with the likes of him. Besides, this is way too heavy for me to use both sides for any prolonged period anyway. Suigetsu continued to say to himself as he began to unseal his weapon. Take this. Kiba shouted out as he came down rapidly on Suigetsu with a hand armed with razor-sharp claws. Kai! Suigetsu yelled as he pulled out his weapon from his scroll with a puff of smoke. Kiba was sure he would get a devastating blow on Suigetsu when he was surprised to find his strike was blocked by what felt like a plate of metal. What the hell? Kiba thought as he jumped back from Suigetsu's counterattack. When the smoke quickly dissipated, it revealed Suigetsu holding a massive axe with a rope that connected to the other seal on the scroll which Suigetsu rolled up and put on his back. What the hell? Who uses such a ridiculous weapon like that? Kiba shouted out in response to seeing such an unwieldy-looking massive axe. Oh, this little thing? It's called Kabutawari. It's one of the 7 legendary swords of the mist, but it's also my little baby, Suigetsu said as he gave the back of his massive axe a stroke. Now let's see what's stronger, your claws or my sword. That's an axe, not a sword, you idiot, Kiba yelled as he jumped back from a massive swing from Suigetsu. Kiba, though being faster, was now on the back foot as Suigetsu swung the huge axe/sword with both hands faster than Kiba expected. With each swing, the mad grin on Suigetsu grew wider and wider. Come on, dog boy. Let's see some more fight from you. Tenten watched the fight from above and breathed a sigh of relief at the fact that she got the well-mannered one of the Kiri team and didn't get an insane opponent like Kiba did. TCH, damn it! At this rate I'll lose. I need to change the pace of this fight, Kiba thought to himself. He reached into his pocket as he came up with a plan. Akamaru! Jujin Bunshin! Beast human clone! Kiba jumped and rolled as far as he could from Sujetsu's relentless attacks to gain himself some time. He threw a pill into Akamaru's mouth as he jumped onto Kiba's back. Sujetsu swung down on the two, but they jumped away on either side, causing the Kabutawari to cleave deeply into the stone floor. On either side of Sujetsu now stood equally feral-looking Kibas, with angry-looking claws and fangs. Oh, this ain't a great spot to be in, Sujetsu said to himself as he rapidly ducked then jumped to dodge attacks from either side. He planted his feet into the ground and heaved with all his might to pull his massive sword axe out of the ground. He was barely able to jump out of the way in time from the next wave of attacks from the two Kibas. You're pretty fast, I'll give you that, Sujetsu admitted as Kiba and Akamaru attacked him relentlessly. Despite Kiba's faster speed, however, Sujetsu was still able to dodge or parry Kiba's attacks with his superior experience and battle IQ. That massive sword was making for a good surface to block with. Sujetsu was on the defensive the whole time with Kiba and Akamaru swarming him, but Sujetsu smirked as he plotted. He could see that Kiba was impatient, and he had a surprise ready for him. A Hozuki surprise. Arg! How is he so good at blocking? Kiba growled out in anger as he tried to come up with a better plan. We're just gonna have to fight smarter, Akamaru, Kiba told his companion, who barked back in agreement. Kiba had Akamaru go in for an attack to distract Sujetsu, while he reached into his pouch and pulled out a couple smoke bombs. Akamaru stayed just out of reach of Sujetsu's sword before Kiba threw the smoke bombs at the fighting pair. What the hell? Sujetsu shouted out when his vision was suddenly cut off by a thick cloud of smoke. Kiba suddenly emerged out of the smoke and swung at him. Unable to predict his movement, Sujetsu tried to dodge, but still ended up taking a nasty cut to his cheek, while Akamaru was able to land a similarly shallow blow on his side. We got him this time, Akamaru! We got him now! Get ready for our ultimate attack! Kiba told Akamaru in excitement. Kurenai smiled as she saw her student put an elite genin like Sujetsu against the ropes. Come on, Kiba, just a little bit more and you got him! Kurenai cheered on. I wouldn't count the Kiri genin out of the fight yet. He's actually a terrible matchup for your genin, and I have reason to believe he might have been just playing with your genin, sorry to say, Kakashi commented. Huh? What do you mean? Kurenai asked. He's a Hozuki, Kakashi replied simply. Narumi raised an eyebrow before asking what Kurenai wanted to ask. What's that supposed to mean? You'll see if you keep watching, Naruto replied as he turned their attention back on the fight. Kiba and Akamaru backed up to gain more room to gain speed and momentum for their ultimate attack. Alright, Akamaru! Let's show him what we can do! Meanwhile, Sujetsu calmly laid down 2 scrolls. He probably thinks he got me. I could have finished this fight a long time ago, but I just wanted to have a little fun. Sujetsu quietly whispered to himself as he unsealed the remaining seal on his weapon scroll and released water from his water storage scroll. Gutsuga! Fong passing Fong! Kiba yelled out as he and Akamaru launched themselves like a drill towards Sujetsu. Kiba smirked as he spun like a drill, as Sujetsu's smell got closer and closer. I got him now! It's over! He and Akamaru reached Sujetsu at the same time, with Kiba hitting Sujetsu's torso from the front, and Akamaru hitting the back of Sujetsu's legs from the back. Kiba's smirk widened for a second as he tore into Sujetsu, before it quickly vanished when he realized he was tearing into him a little too easily. Almost as if he were going through water, he continued to spin but found himself losing momentum as the water became thicker and more viscous. Eventually, both he and Akamaru came to a complete stop. What the hell is going on? Kiba thought to himself as he floated in a weird bubble of viscous water. If you're wondering what is going on, I was able to turn my body into water the moment you hit me, then I used that water to trap you in a water prison, while I reformed out of the excess water, Sujetsu told him. What the hell? Turned into water? Is that even a thing? Kiba wondered in shock as he tried to break out of the water prison to no avail. Now you've seen half of my weapon, so it's time to show you the other half, Sujetsu told Kiba as he took out a bottle of water and began to drink. With each gulp, Sujetsu's arms got bigger and bigger. Now that's the stuff, Sujetsu exclaimed as he picked up the giant hammer laying next to him with one arm. Now do you know a game called croquet? Apparently it's all the rage in the water daimyo's court, Sujetsu told Kiba with a wicked smile. Kiba's eyes widened with fear as Suigetsu raised the hammer with one arm. Here, why don't I show you? Suigetsu told him with evil intent evident in his eyes. Kiba couldn't even scream because of the water around him when Suigetsu swung the hammer at Kiba, releasing the water prison just in time to hit Kiba and Akamaru. The genin and his dog were launched out of the cloud of smoke and slammed into the wall with a nasty crunch, before they fell to the ground unconscious. Kurenai watched in shock, wondering what had happened in that cloud of smoke. When Suigetsu stepped out of the smoke with a massive axe in one hand and a massive hammer in the other, it became clear what had happened. Hade could see that Kiba and Akamaru were out cold. They probably had numerous broken bones as well. The winner by knockout, Hozuki Suigetsu. Zabuza looked over and gave Naruto a smirk. Only 2 teams had their entire squad make it through to the final stage of the exams. Kiri was here to make a statement. That much was clear. However, Naruto wasn't too worried. His team was down for the challenge. He gave Zabuza a smirk back. It was on. Chapter 50. Preparing for the tournament. In Sasuke's infirmary room. Naruto sat in the chair next to Sasuke's bed as he waited for the medics to move him to the hospital, while Narumi sat by the small table next to it, where she unsealed some food and was having her first meal in a while. Naruto had a lot to think about, not only considering the dicey security situation of the Chunin exams and the village as a whole, but also regarding how he needed to help his students get ready for the tournament which would be held in a month's time. Flashback. The preliminary stage of the 3rd stage of the Chunin exams is now over. Hate started when the arena had been cleared up and all the contestants were either getting medical attention or listening to him. This now leaves us with the final roster of contestants who will be fighting in the tournament, a total of 12 genin. While I congratulate you all for making it this far, we unfortunately have an awkward number of contestants making it to the last round. Ugh, please don't tell me you'll eliminate another 4 people with some sort of post-preliminaries. Shikamaru complained. He really didn't want to go through another hassle like that before he got some time to relax. You don't have to worry about any more eliminations for now. The contestants for the tournament are locked in now. Hate explained. What about the awkward number of contestants then? Narumi asked, asking a question that was on the minds of everyone. A Chunin assistant brought in a blackboard where Hate began to draw the tournament brackets. As you can see here, this tournament will have to be structured slightly differently from some you might have seen before. Wait, some people have to fight more than others? Narumi asked in surprise at the shape of the tournament brackets. Hate nodded. Indeed. In the first round, 4 contestants will get a bye to the next round. How is that fair for the people who have to fight an extra round? What is the selection process for the bye based on anyway? Tamari questioned. It's not equal, but this is the best we can do with the number of people we have. We can't have it be a round-robin style tournament, because that will take too long. Hate replied. And as for the selection process, Hate reached into a bowl that held folded up papers with the names of the remaining contestants written on them. Don't tell me we're gonna have it be random. Tamari complained. Despite what you might think, having a bye isn't necessarily an advantage. Sure, you'll have more energy compared to your competition in the second round, but you also won't know who you'll be fighting until the first round is over. The others who don't get a bye to the second round will learn here and now who they'll be fighting, and they'll have time to prepare and strategize. Let me remind you that selection for promotion is based on performance and showing, and not necessarily on winning. If we can see in your first fight that you show the skills and mindset befitting a Chunin, then you can be promoted even if you lose in the second round, or maybe even the first round. Not to mention, you'll have more chances to show what you got. Enko added from the viewing deck as she entered with Ibiki. Well, that as well. Hate agreed. Getting back to business, these are the 4 competitors who will be getting a bye. He began to open up the papers he pulled up. Uzumaki Narumi, Yuki Haku, Gaara of Suna, and finally, Uchiha Sasuke. Yay! Or wait, is that bad? Narumi wondered as she looked at her brother for confirmation. He merely shrugged. Depends on how you look at it, I guess. I guess a small yay works. Narumi said as she shrugged. Haku chuckled at Narumi's comments. She had missed the vibrant energy of her friend during the war. Haku was surprised she got a bye, but she was pleased with the outcome. While she had faith in her abilities, her biggest weakness was her smaller chakra reserves, so this worked out great for her. Gaara, on the other hand, was less enthused at the prospect of having fewer people to introduce to Mother. Temari was not convinced that these were randomly picked, as each contestant who got a bye seemed to be some of the most promising genin here. However, there was nothing she could do. Now as for the matchup for the first round of the tournament, hate began as he reached into the bowl again. The first match will be between Hozuki Suigetsu and Hyuga Hinata. Suigetsu looked over at Hinata and smirked. She didn't look tough in the slightest. He'd get to the next round easily, he thought. The next match will be between Rock Lee and Chojuro of Kiri. Yosh! Let's have a youthful battle, Lee said to his opponent as he gave him a blinding smile. Yeah? Okay, Chojuro replied, not knowing how to respond to such a character. There definitely wasn't anyone so flamboyant like him in Kiri. Next will be Nara Shikamaru and Temari of Suna. Shikamaru gave a glance at Temari before sighing. Great! She looks troublesome already. And the last match of the first round will be between Aburaim Shino and Hyuga Niji. Both Gen and Name didn't show much of a reaction, preferring to keep their thoughts to themselves for now. Naruto looked at the matchups that were written on the board and began to plan what he should do to help his students do well. He was looking at the blackboard when a hand was placed on his shoulder. Well, would you look at that? Both of our teams had all members make it to the final tournament, Zabuza said to Naruto. What can I say? Should I be surprised? Though it does seem a little cheap that you brought a team of war veterans. Zabuza smirked. You know what they say. All is fair in love, war, and the Chunin exams. Wait, what? That's not the saying dash. Zabuza cut off Naruto's interjection. Anyway, why not spice up the tournament with a little wager? It would make watching the tournament more interesting. What do you have in mind? Naruto asked. Zabuza gave him a smirk. And flashback. Naruto's attention turned to the door when they suddenly opened, and several ANBU including Kakashi walked in. Naruto Taishu. The lower-ranking ANBU saluted him as the Hokage followed them in. When Naruto saw the Hokage and his guards, he immediately assumed Hiruzen was here to talk about the infiltrator Naruto had told him about. When he saw Hayashi and Mikoto following the Hokage in though, he realized what else this could be about. Hello Hayashi-san, Mikoto-san. Naruto greeted politely. He was used to seeing a dour look on Hayashi's face, but he was surprised to see it on Mikoto's face as well. Kakashi, stay here with some ANBU and watch over Sasuke and Narumi. I'll be taking my guards to another room to have a private conversation with Naruto, Hayashi-san, and Mikoto-san. Hiruzen ordered. Kakashi nodded and began directing the ANBU into their positions. Hiruzen gestured for Naruto to follow, and the four of them entered an empty room with the ANBU standing guard at the door. Naruto, please secure the privacy of our conversation. Hiruzen asked Naruto. Naruto nodded and began weaving hand seals before he slammed his palm to the ground, where a matrix of kanji emanated from the spot, and began crawling up the walls and ceiling before they vanished. Now that we have some privacy, there are some things we need to discuss. Hiruzen began. Judging by all this security, I'm guessing you're not here to congratulate my team on everyone making it to the last round as rookies, is it? Naruto asked. While I am impressed at the unprecedented feat and congratulate you and your team on doing so, we have more important things to discuss. Hiruzen replied. Of course. What did you need to discuss, Hokage-sama? Naruto asked as his mind went to several places. Why don't we start by discussing the curse marks on our children? Hayashi shouted out at Naruto. Naruto-kun, can you please tell us what happened? Mikoto asked a little more politely with a worried look on her face. We've heard what you told Hokage-sama, but we want more details. Naruto sighed before he nodded. He was just as concerned, but he also only knew what he heard from Hinata and what he put together himself. From what I've heard from Hinata, I have reason to believe that Orochimaru has an interest in your children and marked them with a cursed seal to influence their minds. That's all I know myself. How could you let this happen? You said you'd be responsible for their safety. Do you have any idea what this means for Hinata in our clan? Hayashi shouted angrily. Naruto did feel awful that such a thing happened to his students, but there was no way he could have guessed that someone like Orochimaru would make an appearance in the Chunin exams after he'd been silent for so long. I'm sorry, Hayashi-san. But nobody expected Orochimaru to take an interest in your children, and nobody expected him to show up in the Chunin exams. Hiruzen responded. If it is indeed true that it is him, we have bigger issues to worry about. That didn't do much to make Hayashi feel better. Right when Hinata was proving herself to the clan and Hayashi could openly be proud of her, a tragedy befell her. As a member of the main family of Hyuga, having unmarked skin was essential. It was what set them apart from the cadet branch. Having any mark on your skin was bad enough as a main branch Hyuga, but a curse mark? Worse yet, a curse mark put on by someone outside of the clan? A curse mark was a means of controlling someone, and a Hyuga under the control of someone else was simply not acceptable. As such, Hayashi was extremely concerned about what would happen if the clan elders found out about the mark on Hinata. For the first time in her life, she was living up to her expectations as clan heiress, and Hayashi had been elated to show his pride in her publicly within the clan. But now there was a huge chance that Hinata might be delegated as a branch member. For years he had been pushing off marking either one of his daughters with the caged bird seal as he tried to come up with a plan to save them both. But now his plans were unraveling. "You're the premier seal master of our village. You must do something about this," Hayashi demanded to Naruto. "I'll do what I can, but I'm sure you are well aware of how difficult and complex cursed seals are," Naruto explained. "I'll need to do a lot of research on it, and even then, it might be impossible to fully decipher or remove them without Orochimaru's notes." Are you saying nothing can be done?" Mikoto asked with a paling face. Naruto put a hand on his ant figure's shoulder. "While we cannot currently fully remove the cursed seal, it doesn't mean we can't do anything about it." "Then what can be done?" Hayashi asked. "Well, from what I've seen and what we know about cursed seals, we can assume that this seal is meant to control the marked person, corrupting them in exchange for power." Mikoto couldn't help but cover her mouth as she choked out a sob for her son. "However, my sister Narumi has done a splendid job in applying the evil containment seal on them. It was actually flawlessly done," Naruto went on to explain. "What does this mean?" Mikoto asked in concern. "It means it will prevent the seal from actively corrupting or influencing their minds." "So, this means they are safe from its effects?" Mikoto wondered. "No. While it won't affect them too much directly, they will still be susceptible to its effects on their emotions. If they don't control their emotions and fight against the temptation of power the mark offers, they will fall under its influence. Basically, how much it affects them will be up to them," Naruto explained. "This is the best that can be done under the current circumstances." Hiruzen chimed in. "We'll try to support Naruto in his search for a way to completely remove the cursed seal, but we have more pressing matters if Orochimaru has infiltrated the village without us knowing. The cursed seal issue will have to take a back seat for now." "But what about the effects it will have for Hinata within my clan?" Hayashi asked. "You'll have to come up with something, Hayashi-san. It is your clan after all." Hiruzen responded. "I can cover up her seal with a seal that will cast the genjutsu over the mark, but I'm not sure that will do much for a clan full of people that can easily see through a genjutsu," Naruto commented. "We have strict rules banning the use of the Byakugan within the clan compound. I'm willing to try anything right now," Hayashi replied. He was desperate. "Good. Then Naruto here can do that for Hinata and Sasuke." Hiruzen concluded about the matter. "Meanwhile, keep close watch over them. I'll have ANBU watch over them as well, but if Orochimaru has his eyes set on them, we can't afford to be lax in their security." Everyone in the room agreed, and Hiruzen and Mikoto left after discussing a few more details on what needed to be done regarding Orochimaru. Naruto was about to leave too when Hayashi stopped him from getting to the door. Naruto was confused and was about to get angry, when Hayashi dropped down on his knees. "Please find a solution for Hinata. Her well-being depends on it." Hayashi then bowed down with his forehead touching the floor. "I beg you, Naruto-san. You're the only one in this village who can save her." Naruto had never liked Hayashi, and thought he was an arrogant prick who only cared about his reputation. But seeing him throwing away his dignity for the sake of his daughter made him reconsider his judgment of the man. He helped Hayashi back to his feet. "I promise I'll do my best to come up with something for Hinata. All I ask is that you protect her from your own clan until I can find a solution." Hayashi nodded. "Thank you, Naruto-san. I'll leave it in your hands." He then gathered himself and opened the door to leave. Just before he left, Hayashi spoke one last time to Naruto. "By the way, you've done a splendid job with Hinata and the others. I thank you for believing in her and bringing out the true potential that even I could not see." When Hayashi left, Naruto stood there, considering everything that just happened. Maybe Hayashi wasn't a total asshole after all. At the Uzumaki clan house, Naruto and Narumi were greeted with a scream when they got back home. Ah! Ah! Narumi screamed in shock as she wasn't expecting that when she opened the door to her house. Geez, will everyone quit screaming? Naruto asked as he picked his ears. You should let people know you're coming in when you enter. Karen replied as she pointed a ladle at the two. Oh. Sorry. I guess we're not used to having other people in the house. Naruto answered back. What are you doing with that ladle and apron anyway? Narumi asked as she pointed at Karen's outfit. Making dinner? Duh. That's quite nice of you. Naruto told Karen with a warm smile. But why are you cooking? Usually Naruto and Ai-chan cooks. Narumi asked. Well, I was just trying to do something nice for you guys. Since you've been so nice to be me, letting me stay here and all. Karen said shyly. Naruto walked up to Karen and put a hand on her shoulder. Thank you, Karen. It's nice to have someone else cook for once. A few minutes later, Narumi and Naruto were seated at the dinner table as Karen brought out the food. Hope you guys like curry. My mom used to make it for me all the time, but I never got her recipe, so I sorta made it up as I went. The Nera's siblings thanked Karen and dug into their food. Narumi took a bite and began to chew. She felt the undercooked vegetables and overcooked rice and tasted the terribly seasoned and watery curry, which made her gag a little. She turned to her brother, who was eating politely but had a disturbed look in his eyes that Karen didn't notice. So, how is it, guys? Karen asked as she poured some curry on her plate and sat at her seat. It's great, Karen-chan. Naruto lied as he tried to give a thumbs up and a smile reminiscent of Guy, but couldn't manage such a brilliant smile as the sides of his mouth quivered from the terrible food in his mouth. Isn't it, Narumi-chan? Narumi felt betrayed as Naruto shifted the attention on her. She gave Karen a shaky smile as she nodded, but couldn't bring herself to say that the food tasted good with her own mouth. Karen smiled and dug into her own meal. Just a few bites were all she needed to realize that her food tasted awful. She looked up to look at Naruto and Narumi, whose hands were shaking as they continued to eat the food with a forced smile. Hee hee, it's my first time cooking. I promise my mom's didn't taste like this, Karen said as she scratched the back of her head in embarrassment. By the way, Karen, you're family, and you don't need to pay us back for taking care of you. That's just what family does, Naruto told Karen, which garnered a grateful smile out of her. So don't feel like you have to cook for us anymore, okay? You really don't owe us anything. Naruto subtly emphasized what he really wanted to say. This is your home now. Don't mind us and make yourself comfortable. Karen was very happy to be wholeheartedly accepted by the family she recently found she had, but couldn't help but doubt if this would be a permanent arrangement. Are you sure I'll be able to stay here? I don't want to get comfortable here only to have to go back to Kusa. I want to be prepared for that if that happens. Look, I can't guarantee 100% that you will certainly be allowed to stay here, but I will promise you that I will do everything in my power to improve your chances of staying here. I already asked the Hokage to tell Kusa, and he's probably the person I trust most when it comes to diplomatic solutions. Naruto told Karen. Karen's past experiences told her that things never went smoothly, but she decided to leave it in the hands of her clan head and the Hokage of her hopefully soon-to-be village. A few days later, at Training Ground 7, after everyone had recovered from their injuries and got the rest they so desperately needed, Team 7 got together at their training ground to discuss what needed to be done. Let me start by saying that I am very happy to see you all in better shape than you were at the preliminary fights. Naruto began as he looked over his much fresher-looking students. We don't have much time to waste when it comes to preparing for the tournament, but before we get to that there's something we need to discuss. Hinata and Sasuke immediately knew what was coming, and subconsciously put their hands over the side of their necks. We need to talk about the curse seals you guys got in the forest. Have you talked to your parents about them yet? Naruto asked. The two of them quietly nodded. Like I'm sure your parents explained to you, the seal on your neck is dangerous. I don't know how much you know, but the person who put the seals on your neck is no ordinary genin. Sasuke had already heard from Mikoto about who the culprit was and how dangerous he was, but Hinata hadn't heard much from her father, other than to never show her curse mark and to never fall to it. Who was it? Hinata asked. Naruto sighed. I don't want to scare you, but the person you fought in the forest was Orochimaru. He's one of the most powerful shinobi Konoha has produced, but is also one of the most sick and evil people Konoha has produced as well. Hinata's face lost its color as she took in the info. Why? What does he want with us? Hinata asked. We don't know. but I doubt it's for anything good. That's why it's important that you learn to control the seal, instead of letting it control you. Sasuke looked down in shame as he remembered how he let the seal control him during the preliminaries. He had always wanted to show off his own strength and talent, but he had fallen to the temptation of the seal and let it control him into depending on its strength. Naruto noticed this and spoke up. Now, while this is a serious situation, I don't want you guys to worry or stress too much about it. It's clear that it's dangerous and seeks to control you, but with the evil containment seal that Narumi placed on it, it becomes possible for you to fight back and control it instead. Now, I know that it offers you great power dash, but we should fight against it and never use it because it can control us. Sasuke replied, saying what he thought Naruto would say. Well, kinda, but not really. Hinata and Sasuke gave him a confused look. Look, if it was up to me, I would prefer that you guys were never branded with the seal. But the fact is, it is on you, and we can't get it off of you for now. But we're also ninja. We should use everything we have to our advantage. If the seal offers you a great power like we saw the preliminaries, we need to learn to control it so we can use it when we need to. Just because it's dangerous doesn't mean we should hide from it. We should instead learn to control it. Sasuke and Hinata were surprised to hear this, after their parents had advised extreme caution regarding the seal and told them to always suppress it. Hey, that's kinda like me with the Kyuubi. Naruto's jaw dropped as Narumi released confidential information. Narumi! What did I say about that information? Naruto shouted at her. Oh. Well, they already knew for a while now. It's no biggie. This was news to Naruto. How did they find out? When did she tell them? Naruto let out a sigh of exasperation. She had no idea how dangerous that information was, and there could have easily been someone nearby who could have heard that crucial information. However, the cat was already out of the bag, and there was no point crying over spilled milk. Look, Narumi, I don't know why you shared that information without telling me, but I don't want you sharing this information with anyone else without letting me know first. Okay, Narumi nodded. Naruto pinched the bridge of his nose to gather himself before he turned back to his team. Well, anyway, like what Narumi said, it's important that you learn to control this power, but I don't want you relying on it, okay? Only use it when it's absolutely necessary and it's a matter of life and death. Sasuke and Hinata nodded. Alright, let's move on. Naruto said as he got back to what he gathered his team for. Now let's talk about your training for the tournament. He pulled out a notepad that had the matchups written on it. So, Narumi and Sasuke get a bye to the next round, but Hinata fights Suigetsu in the first round. Hinata nodded nervously as she thought about her match. She remembered how Suigetsu dominated Kiba with his abilities and how strong he looked. Well, it looks like Narumi is most likely going to fight either Suigetsu or Hinata in the second round, and Sasuke is going to fight Shino or Niji. Narumi and Sasuke nodded. So how should we train? Well, since we know who Hinata is fighting, I've got specific things I want her to train in, but for you guys, yeah? What about us? Narumi asked as Naruto continued to stare at his notepad. If that's who I think it is, you guys might have to face quite the challenging opponent down the line. Naruto told his genin as his eyes fell on a certain Suna genin's name. Huh? Who is that? Narumi wondered. I may be mistaken, but I think there might be another Jinchuriki present in this exam, Naruto quietly told his team. What? His genin shouted out in surprise simultaneously. Who? I believe Gaara of Suna is the current Jinchuriki of the Ichibi. I don't know how he fights exactly, but I heard he uses his sand for his impressive offense and defense, and that he's quite powerful. Sasuke and Hinata began to feel concerned and wondered what they were to do if they faced him, as they saw how powerful Jinchurikis could be back in their mission in Taki when Narumi and Fu manhandled Jonin-level shinobi. Meanwhile, Narumi was more intrigued than worried. The red-headed boy had shown interest in her earlier, and she was now wondering if that was because he somehow knew she was a Jinchuriki as well. She was now curious in how the boy would fight and wanted to see how she stacked up against other Jinchuriki. How can we fight against a J Jinchuriki, sensei? Aren't they stronger than J Jonin? Hinata asked in concern. I'll be honest with you guys. If he proves to be too strong, I want you guys to forfeit. He's known to be pretty unstable, and you guys are honestly nowhere near the level to face the power of a Biji yet, and nobody expects you or even any Chunin to be able to take one down. So, we'll have to automatically forfeit if we face him? Sasuke asked. Well, not necessarily. If he fights you as a shinobi and doesn't use the powers of the bijou inside him, you still have the chance to beat him. Naruto replied. But even then, it won't be easy. You'll be in extreme danger. That's why I'm going to have you guys learn something more powerful as an ace up your sleeve. Sasuke's eyes lit up at that. He always wanted to learn newer and stronger jutsu. An ace up our sleeves? What did you have in mind? So far, the focus of your training was in learning the basics and having a strong foundation, so that you can learn more advanced jutsu more easily later, and to use what you do know with as much versatility as you can. Well, you guys are more versatile than any genin I know, and your foundation is strong enough for me to believe that you're now ready for something stronger. Something more dangerous. Sasuke was practically salivating now. Dangerous. Now that was a word that he wanted to be used to describe him. Are you gonna teach us some killer jutsu? Sasuke asked as he practically bounced with excitement. Well, I do have something very powerful in mind for you, but unfortunately it's not something I can teach you. Sasuke's shoulders fell. He wanted his hero to teach him one of his signature moves. So, are we going to teach ourselves through scrolls or something then? Narumi asked Naruto. Naruto shook his head. You're going to be working on the family jutsu, which we've already been working on, but the others will be getting a sensei to teach them. Sasuke and Narumi's eyes met as they looked at each other in concern. Oh no, please don't tell me it's going to be Dash. Yo! Kakashi greeted Team 7 from behind with a two-finger salute. Kakashi-sensei. Sasuke completed his sentence as he turned around to look at Kakashi, while Narumi crossed her arms and rolled her eyes. Oh great. We have Hentai-sensei to teach us again. I feel loved. Kakashi commented as he scratched the back of his head. Naruto chuckled at the scene. Actually, Hentai-sensei will only be teaching Sasuke. Kakashi's sweat dropped at Naruto's acceptance of Narumi's name for him. Could you not call me that? One person calling me that is already one person too many. Sure thing, Hentai-senpai. Naruto responded. Kakashi was starting to regret coming out here instead of staying home and reading his books. But I've trained with him before. What else is going to teach me? More right and manipulation? Sasuke complained. I wouldn't complain if I were you. He's one of the most powerful shinobi in our entire village. People who give up an arm to get the chance to be trained by him, you know, and he's here to teach you his signature move. Naruto told Sasuke. His signature move? Narumi wondered out loud, matching Sasuke's curiosity about the subject. Maybe if you start treating me with respect and stop calling me Hentai-sensei or anything like that, I'll show you what it is someday. Why don't we have a quick demonstration for them to get excited about the prospect, and maybe regain some semblance of respect for you, senpai? Naruto suggested. Kakashi rolled his one visible eye. Sheesh, what am I, a performing circus clown? No, you're a shameless pervert who's always late. Narumi corrected him. Kakashi cracked his knuckles as the vein on his forehead began to bulge. Alright. It was time to show them how cool he actually was. Okay, that's it. Time to show you I'm not some pervert, and that I'm an actually respectable ninja. Naruto chuckled to himself as he watched his usually calm, cool, and collected senpai get so easily riled up by his little sister. Watch carefully, kiddos. I won't be showing you again. After Kakashi rapidly formed a few hand seals, lightning began to spark from his hands. Such power! So, this is the difference between me and an elite jonin? Sasuke thought to himself as the intense lighting focused on Kakashi's hand sparked. Raikiri! Lightning cutter! Kakashi moved like a blur, only visible by the bright blue streak the lightning in his hand left behind as he ran towards a tree. When he struck the tree, it cut in half with a sickening crunch as the smell of burning wood filled the air. The three genin looked on in awe at the sheer destructive power that jutsu packed. That demonstration didn't even show you what it's truly capable of. That jutsu is capable of cutting through anything. He even cut through a bolt of lightning once. Naruto explained. Sasuke tried to wipe his mouth secretly as he was basically drooling at the prospect of learning such a jutsu. Can me and Hinata-chan learn it as well, Anai-chan? Narumi asked. Not really. There are some requirements to use the jutsu, and only Sasuke has them from the three of you. Sasuke looked up at Kakashi wondering what that could be, as all three of them had lightning affinities. The only thing that came to mind were his Sharingan, but only Uchiha had those, and Kakashi was no Uchiha. But don't worry. I have plans for both of you as well. I guarantee you that they'll suit you better, and they're just as good. The three genin looked at each other and smiled. They were excited to find out what they were going to learn. This was going to be a fun month. Or at least, that's what they were thinking. Kakashi and Naruto gave each other a smirk. It was indeed going to be a fun month, but not for the genin. Later, at Ichiraku's after a rough day of training, Team 7 had gathered at Narumi's favorite eatery, and what was becoming their team's hangout spot, Ichiraku's Ramen. "Hey look, it's Naruto and his genin! How have you all been?" Tochi shouted out as he greeted Naruto and Narumi, who smiled back, and the other two who looked like they had seen better days. "Hi everyone!" I am greeted as she showed Team 7 to their seats. "You had a guest waiting for you." Naruto saw a familiar redhead waiting for them like they had planned earlier. "Sheesh! I thought you guys were gonna be here by 6:30. I've been waiting for like 30 minutes now," Karen complained. She stopped complaining, however, when Sasuke was seated next to her. Her face began to heat up. "Sorry, Karen-chan. Sasuke here was pretty adamant about getting something down before coming," Naruto explained as he sat on the other side of Karen. Karen shyly looked at Sasuke with a side glance and saw how beat up he looked. Immediately, her demeanor changed from bashful to mama mode. "Oh my gosh, are you okay, Sasuke-kun?" she gasped out as she grabbed him and looked over him. Sasuke was taken by surprise and didn't know how to act. Yeah. I'm alright," Narumi chuckled as she pointed out the scene to Hinata. "Looks like Ino-chan and the others got some competition, eh?" she whispered to Hinata, who giggled. "Geez, Sasuke-kun, be careful. What if you get hurt?" Karen asked as she looked over his training wounds. "Looks like you guys are quite familiar with each other. When did you guys get so close?" Naruto asked. Karen's face turned the same shade as her hair when she realized she had only seen him once before, and that she had gotten close to him in her daydreams only, and it was definitely a one-sided thing. I mean, we met in the forest." Karen mumbled as she went back to being timid as she looked at her toes. Naruto laughed at the awkward scene he had created accidentally as he ordered for everyone. As everyone waited for their food to arrive, Naruto made another announcement to his team. "Alright guys, there's something else I need to tell you." His genin looked up at him and wondered what it was. "What is it, Naruto-sensei?" "With the tournament coming up and only having 1 month to prepare for some very tough fights, I thought it would be best if we can maximize our training during that time. That's why I asked your parents if you guys could stay with me and train for the month. They gave me their permission, so after dinner, you will all be coming to me and Narumi's house." The three genins' faces lit up at the news, all for different reasons. Narumi was glad to have more friends with her, being the extrovert that she was. Hinata was happy to see her sensei, who she had a small crush on, and Sasuke was excited to spend more time with his hero and to get more training. Karen, too, was screaming with joy in the inside, as she would now have more time to spend with her Sasuke-kun and develop some of the scenarios she had in her head. Unbeknownst to the genin, however, Naruto was bringing them to his house for other reasons as well. While on the surface this was for training, it was actually a twofold maneuver. One reason was to prevent Hinata Seal from being seen by her clan while he worked on a way to hide or get rid of it, and the other reason was to protect them from Orochimaru or whatever other minions he had hidden within the walls of Konoha. Soon brought out their ramens, and they all began to eat, with the genin talking about their training. Karen just listened as she ate, as she wasn't as close to Sasuke and Hinata, and also wasn't part of their team and didn't have much to contribute. Naruto noticed this and began to talk to her. "Would you like to be trained as well?" Naruto asked. What? Training?" Karen asked as she was taken by surprise. When Naruto nodded back, she started to think about the proposal. She wanted to be stronger and be able to join in the conversation with Team 7, but she really wasn't much of a fighter, and she hated fighting. She had seen how strong Team 7 could be, and knew she was out of her league. I'm not sure. I'm not really much of a fighter. That can change with training. But if you're not interested in being a combat shinobi, there are other things you can do as well, you know," Naruto pointed out. Karen's ears perked up. This was something she hadn't considered. In her mind, you were either a combat shinobi or you were useless. At least that's what her former team had drilled into her. "What else could I do?" she asked. "Well, there are a lot of things. Not every shinobi in Konoha is a fighter, you know. I'm training my team to be combat specialists, but you can also be a medic, work as a sealing expert, a cryptographer, interrogator, researcher dash, or you could even work in the police department, Izumi added as she joined the group at Ikaraka's. Izumi ne-chan! Narumi shouted in greeting as she waved at her. Hey guys! Notice you guys as I was walking back home and decided to join your little party. Hope you don't mind, Izumi told the team. You're always welcome with our team, Izumi ne-chan, Narumi replied. Isn't that right, Oniai-chan? Naruto shrugged. I suppose so. Well, thanks for the enthusiastic response, Izumi joked as she sat next to Naruto. So, what is this I hear about Naruto giving career advice? Well, I was just asking Karen-chan here if she wanted to train in something specific, Naruto replied. Izumi looked at the red-haired girl sitting shyly between Naruto and Sasuke and greeted her. Hi! You must be Karen-chan. I don't think I've met you before. How do you guys know each other again? Izumi asked. Well, I met Sasuke-kun, Narumi-chan, and Hinata-chan during the Chunin exams. Then I found out I was related to Narumi-chan, and then she invited me to stay with her, Karen responded. Izumi was a little surprised to hear that. Wait, so you're an Uzumaki? And you're not from Konoha? Karen nodded. Izumi could definitely see the similarities between her and Narumi. I mean, I can definitely see that you're an Uzumaki from the similarities you have with Narumi and Kushina-san, but still, I can't say I'm not surprised to see you. I had always thought Naruto-kun and Narumi-chan were the last two Uzumaki left out there. Where were you this whole time? She's originally from Kusa, Narumi responded in Karen's stead. Kusa? Izumi thought out loud to herself. That's interesting. Naruto continued the conversation he was having with Karen as Izumi broke out of her thoughts and ordered her usual. So anyway, are you interested in specializing in something else? Naruto asked. Karen considered the things she heard. While she did have healing powers, it came at a cost, and her mother had died by being used as a glorified panacea for the Kusa shinobi. She had been used in this way as well, and she had hated it. She decided being a medic was not something she wanted to do. She didn't think she had the stomach to work in interrogation, but being the intellectually oriented person that she was, cryptography and research sounded pretty appealing. However, what appealed to her most was something that was part of her recently discovered heritage. Sealing. I think I want to be a sealing expert. I want to learn our clan techniques, Karen told Naruto. Naruto smiled as he ruffled her hair. That sounds like a great choice, Karen-chan. The two of them smiled at each other before they went back to eating. Izumi quietly nudged Naruto in his side. Psst. Listen, I'm really happy that you found another family member, and it's warming my heart to see you guys bonding. But what's the situation with her and Kusa? Are they just gonna let her live here? Izumi whispered. I'm not really sure yet, but I've told Hokage-sama about the situation, and he said he'll do everything he can to make things work. And if there's one person I trust to sort things out diplomatically, it's him. So I'll leave it in his hands. I'm ready to follow through with whatever demands they make though, within reason. Izumi tilted her head, unsure of how things would go, but she hoped everything would turn out well. Her friend could sure use more family. A few days later, at the Hokage's office, Naruto was heading towards the Hokage's office late at night after receiving his summons. He was almost there when he spotted Izumi heading the same way. He sped forward to catch up to her. Yo! Where are you going? He asked. Oh! Hey Naruto! I was summoned to the Hokage's office, so I was heading over there now. What are you doing out here? Naruto was surprised to hear her answer. I'm going for the same reason. I wonder what's going on. Izumi wondered out loud as they traveled to the Hokage's office together. Naruto shrugged. I have no clue, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. They arrived at the Hokage's office after a few minutes and knocked on the door. Hokage-sama? It's Naruto and Izumi, Naruto said out loud. May we come in? Yes, of course. Please come in. Hiruzen responded from the other side of the door. When the two walked in, they saw Hiruzen at his desk and Shizen standing in front of it, looking confused as to what was going on as well. Naruto and Izumi saluted the Hokage as they stood in front of his desk next to Shizen. You summoned us, Hokage-sama? Naruto asked. Hiruzen nodded. I did indeed. I've got news for you, Naruto-kun. Naruto raised an eyebrow. News? I got a response from Kusa, and simply put, they are not happy with the idea of giving up Karen, and they are even less happy with the fact that she's practically been kidnapped. Kidnapped? She's just staying with her own clan, Naruto argued. Of course, I know this. But you do understand that from their perspective, one of their shinobi didn't return from the Chunin exams, and now they hear that she wants to stay in Konoha without seeing or hearing from her. Hiruzen explained. Naruto couldn't argue with that. So, what do they want? They say she's invaluable to the village as a medic and refuse to hand her over. As a medic? Naruto wondered. Hiruzen nodded. I've had people look into it, and it looks like she has a unique chakra and ability, where people can bite her to absorb her chakra and recover from horrific wounds. So, they want to keep her so people can just bite her whenever they need to? Naruto asked in disbelief as he began to get angry. I know that's not something you want happening to your family, but you do understand how she would be seen as a valuable asset, right? Hiruzen asked. Naruto didn't respond to that question, instead asking one of his own. So, what's gonna happen? That is why I have gathered you all here. Hiruzen told the three shinobi in front of him. Izumi and Shizen shared a look. They had been wondering this whole time how any of this had to do with them for some time. In return for Uzumaki Karen, I've offered to teach their medics some of the techniques from Konoha, as well as give them some benefits in trade, but they've turned it down, Hiruzen explained. They don't want to negotiate? Naruto asked. While the leader of Kusa made it seem like he wasn't willing to negotiate, I know the man well. He wants more. He already knows teaching Konoha medical jutsu and techniques to their medical system will be more useful than having one genin who is limited in availability. He just wants to milk the deal as much as he can. Hiruzen then turned to all of them. That is why I have summoned all of you. I'm putting a negotiation team under Izumi, and Shizen will go there to teach the medical techniques. Naruto nodded in agreement. That sounds like a good plan. You'll be going as well, Hiruzen told him. Naruto was not happy to hear that. Wait, what? How about my team? Not only do I have to train them, I have to make sure they're safe. I can't go. Naruto, they're furious about the fact that Karen has been practically kidnapped. They demanded that we send her over so they can talk to her. Yeah, and I bet they'll manipulate her or do something to her when she gets there. Naruto scoffed. Precisely. That is why the head of the Uzumaki needs to go to explain and pacify them with direct negotiations. Hiruzen argued. Is that what they wanted? Naruto asked. Hiruzen nodded. Naruto sighed. He promised he'd do everything he could to make sure Karen could stay with him. But he didn't want to endanger his students in doing so. How about the safety of my team? Naruto asked. I'll have Kakashi and what remains of Team Omega take over their training and have my most trusted ANBU watch over their safety. Naruto sighed again. This wasn't ideal, but he had to do what he had to do. Fine. When will be leaving? Hiruzen pulled out a scroll and handed it to Izumi. I'll give you a day to put things into order. You'll be leaving in the morning after tomorrow. My instructions for you are in the scroll. The three shinobi in front Hiruzen saluted him and left. Now, to deal with the other problem. He pricked his thumb with a sharp kunai and slammed his hand on his desk. With a puff of smoke, a small monkey appeared. You summoned Hiruzen-sama? Indeed. Hiruzen told the monkey as he pulled out a scroll. Take this to Jiraiya. There's a snake problem in Konoha I'll need his help dealing with.